What's going on, everyone? Looks like we are live, hopefully. The stream, for some reason on YouTube, says very worrying no data. So hopefully you're all seeing this. But yeah, welcome to the Saturday morning streams. And we're going to be diving in to the locals here. So, if you don't know, every week we hold a locals tournament in whatever format we are, sort of highlighting that week, whether it be a format that we're going to be doing for a monthly, or whether it be just a format that we're going through the history for, and we want to sort of like just show off and let people play. So this week we're doing Chaos Return, and Chaos Return is what we're doing the monthly for. And I'm just gonna start because I mean I think we've got enough people, so let's get this party started. We're starting those locals. There we go. And the tournament is beginning. I'm just going to shuffle up because it's a locals thing, so we don't need to seed it by anything. And it's an unrated tournament, so if you want to ever dive into one of these in the future, it's a fun time. So I'm starting that up. I got the challenge over here. Let me just refresh that to make sure that everything's good. And it looks like we have started. So we got some great matches lined up here. We got Helios versus Clevens, Dean versus Soul, Hoy versus Chef Steph Curry, PJ versus Splevin, and Dump Truck versus Haiku. So we got a pretty big bracket here, 13 people. I was a bit worried because, we did this a bit earlier than last time, to accommodate the people in the EU or just other time zones that this makes more sense for. And it seemed like we might not get too many people. We actually managed to tie the amount of people we got last week. So that was a fun locals. So I'm excited to see that we've got the same amount of people here. And then we can dive into the watching. Just see whichever one of those starts first and dive into that. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what happens here in this locals. If you don't know, Chaos Return format is the format centered around August 2006, SJC Indy of that year. So 1 year after GOAT format, using the April 2006 limited list or ban list. I always call it limited list because during the DM era, they're all limited list. They weren't ban list yet. So, I sort of have that like, not like tick, but like just mental block almost to calling them ban list stuff. I was yeah, this is gonna get really dark real quick, but for some reason the Indie Experience says the timing was great for me. I finished work half an hour ago. Thanks for letting me know about the tourney. Looking forward to showing the spice. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. So glad that it worked out well. And yeah, they'll always check in the future with the locals time. There should be posted about like 2 days before the actual event happens for the locals, just for voting on the time. And yeah, just stay tuned there. But yeah, I'm glad you could make it. So yeah, Trap Dust Shoot getting fired first. I mean, that's the classic, right? So Trap Dust Shoot getting a peek at Astral Haiku's hand, but it looks like maybe no monsters because they give a little smiley face there, or it's just showing off some of the spice right away. So we'll have to see exactly what that is over the course of the game there. But yeah, I think Dust Shoot is one of the most toxic cards in this format. But the thing is, you can't escape Dust Shoot in pretty much every GX format. Every, well, not really the late DM formats after Dust Shoot's introduced, because you still have a lot of the hand rips legal in things like Warrior format, for instance, or other formats like that. So Dust Shoot doesn't actually see like too much play. It does see play, don't get me wrong, and I think as Warrior format gets more explored, I think it would probably see more play. But the thing is, if you're in like Warrior format, right, and you've got Forceful, you've got Comfy and stuff, those are just two better hand rips than Dust Shoot in general. So you don't need to play as many Dust Shoots, so you then play less Dust Shoots overall, right? And you might think, well, that's not much better if you're just playing two different hand rips instead of the Dust Shoot. But I think Dust Shoot's a lot more toxic than those hand rips. And I know longtime viewers, you're going to get tired of this speech already, because I make this speech like a lot. So, and the Experience asks, what's worse, getting hit by Dust Shoot when at 3 or at 1? That is a good question. And it's sort of an interesting one too, because I think that a lot of times if a card's at 1, it feels a lot worse when it gets hit on you, right? Because it's more of like a sack, right? Because, there's only one of it in your opponent's deck. How did they manage to draw that first turn? That, they just luck sack their way into victory, right? But I think, honestly, with Dust Shoot, I don't really care about the number, right? Because even if it's at 3, I sort of think of Dust Shoot as like a no skill card. Well, it's not a no skill card. It does require some skill, picking between two monsters and then playing your turns. Oh, look, another dust shoot. Hey. But it does require some skill, picking the right monster and structuring your turns following, based on the information that you got from your opponent's hand. But it's like, yeah, as Model says, at 3, it feels like it's always coming. And at 1, it's like, okay, it's just what is, it's at 1 copy. It's going to pop up occasionally, but, there you go. But yeah, I honestly feel like Dust Shoot just always feels like a sack to me. It just always feels toxic. So at 3 or at 1, I hate the card no matter what. CS asks, when will POTD format be covered, or is it in the same boat as Warrior format? So for things like POTD format, or like minor formats that are like just based around, one influx into the card pool, and that doesn't really have a big format based around it, I'm going to do it like I've been doing it recently for GX, where I'm going to push it off to just future locals. So when we get there in the timeline, going through all these locals, I will be covering that and having a locals where people can, play around with it. But, for now, I'm just going to focus on jumping into the next sort of formats listed on Format Library, right? Because those I'm treating as like sort of like official, and that may sound silly because at the end of the day, this is all sort of like, community driven, going back in retrospect and making things. So no format is like really more official than another in terms of like, why we played or not. But that's how I'm treating it, because there's something like that. Yeah, double Dust Shoot in round 1, but so that's why I'm gonna be focusing, just going directly into Stein format and then directly into Chimera Tech format after Chaos Return format coverage ends. But Wave Motion, pretty scary here when there are two Gravekeeper Spies on field there. That's kind of rough for Dump Truck here. That's going to be a timer on that. But, there are... Oh, Skilled Rain. Wow. Okay, so Haiku is playing quite the deck, This is kind of wild. So the Warrior Lady will not be able to use their effect, and the Sangan will be destroyed, so they will get a search here. What are they searching, though, off this, is the question. I'm honestly not sure if you really care about... Well, you probably care about the Sangan being banished there. I'm just trying to think about what... I mean, Big Shield Gardena would be something, maybe, to just have as a big guy in defense. But I don't know. Morphing Jar, I mean, what did that do for you with Skilled Rain up, right? So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe they've got a way to clear their own Skilled Rain, or maybe they just got the Morphing Jar for if Dump Truck draws into a way to clear the Skilled Rain, right? And then that can deal with that. But yeah, I don't know. I might have just honestly let the Sangan go, because with Skilled Rain up, there's nothing really in Haiku's deck that I think does much under this. So, but still, very interesting deck here that we've got showing off. I feel like there's a deck that doesn't often get shown off in a lot of these formats, because a lot of people don't play them. It's kind of a deck that a lot of people view negatively, where they're like, oh, well, this is just a burn deck. It's you just sit behind some guys and you just wait until you win, right? And I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily like that sort of gameplay. But it is something that you can play in the deck. It's another direction you can go if you do enjoy that sort of strategy. And so it is valid. So you do have to respect it, keep it in mind. And we're seeing that here. So Snatch Shield is going to be taking that Gravekeeper Spy there. Going for an Econ, tributing off that Spy to take another Spy. This is a very, very clever play on Dump Truck's part. And then going for a meta to go into Darkfire Dragon. Go touch grass, please, Lord. I'm allergic to grass. I can't touch grass because then I get rash. So, yeah, I can't believe you'd say that to me, Model. Damn. Okay, it looks like they're going to meta that into a proxied version of Darkfire Dragon. So if you don't know, in formats like this, you do have an unlimited fusion deck, because at the time, there was no limit on the extra deck. That only came about in the Synchro era. So, if you do want to play a fusion monster that is not listed in your fusion deck on Dueling Book, you can actually just proxy in another one, because the idea is like, we're playing these formats, hypothetically, where we have access to the entire card pool. So there's no reason for someone to not just bring a fusion deck with like every single fusion monster in the game at 3 copies. Technically, there are 2 reasons to potentially do that, namely Memory Crusher and success probability 0%. Well, actually, success probability 0%. You don't really care about how many. It's really just Memory Crusher. Memory Crasher is the only reason why you'd potentially not want to play a fully unlimited fusion deck. But like even with that, realistically, you could potentially have it cut down to like 3 or even 2 of the best fusion monsters in the game, right? So yeah, I mean, yeah, I am actually allergic to grass. It's not a serious allergy. Like I can go outside and not just like immediately keel over, but like I mean I do get a rash. It's only certain types of grass. Like there are some types of grass that I'm fine, but some of it is just not good. I can't frolic around in the grass as much as I'd like to, but yeah, it is kind of like graphics are good, but the gameplay sucks. But I mean, the good thing is if I just go out in like long sleeves and long pants and stuff, it's fine. If I want to like, go on into a field and roll around. I mean, if I get my like too much on my face, then that's annoying. But like, overall it's fine. So, but yeah, it's just really weird. I'm not expecting that when I initially went in. When I was like, in elementary school, like 2nd grade or something, and I got like the prick test done and stuff, and I was expecting like nuts or like something like that, like one of the standard allergies, but no, they were like grass and cockroaches, in fact. And it's like, why are you testing for cockroaches? Why is that in your testing on the prick test thing? But yeah, so meanwhile, this game's been going on, and I haven't really been talking too much about it. But this is a very interesting turn here. So, the tomato crashing is going to go through. And that Wave Motion Games only had 3 with Haiku at 2,300. So, I don't know. I think Dump Truck could potentially pull this one out. Am I water type? In the Pokemon world, I think I would be, yeah. Although, I'm not the biggest fan of the water, too. Like, I don't really like going swimming. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just... is there a Pokemon type that, like, all the types hate, maybe that's me. But Dark Mimic level 3 is coming out here, so that will be able to get a draw, which is something, and the Sangan will be able to get a search as well, so that's pretty nice. But Sangan is just going to crash in the token there, it looks like. So yeah, water types are kind of the nerds of the Pokemon universe. Although yeah, I'm not gonna say the copy pasta about a specific water type, but I mean, to be fair, that copy pasta is something that like someone who really needs to touch grass would come up with. So looks like the Dark Mimic level 3 is just going to crash in the Sangan here, and that will get Haiku a draw here. And also Sangan will be able to search something here, but it is getting rid of a monster for Dump Truck. So I do get why you do this, and of course that's going to search out the Exiled Force, which can pop whatever Haiku commits to the field. But yeah. Yeah, Mewtwo copy pasta. That's what I was referring to. Yeah, that's it. If you don't know the copy pasta, I'm not gonna, introduce you into that like info hazard there, because honestly, it is kind of an info hazard. So, but pre-mat to get back that Exod pop the set. That's gonna be pretty good because this is lethal damage if this all goes through with that Dark Fairy Dragon attacking in. But Gravity Bind will get flipped, so that will stop the Dark Fire for now. And Dump Truck is at 5,600 now, so 2 more turns on Wave Motion will kill them. So very, very scary spot to be in for Dump Truck, but also scary spot to be in for Haiku because, if that Gravity Bind falls, I mean, you got 2 sets here, which might be something, but if they're not anything and that Gravity Bind falls, then this is just the end of the game. Although, honestly, if Dump Truck gets into an MST or something, you might want to hit the Wave Motion, but no, Dump Truck's just like, they can't do anything against that. So yeah, showing the power of Burn there. Of course, we got some other games against non-Burn focused decks, so let's dive into one of those. We got Splevin versus PJ here, and it seems like PJ is off to a pretty good start, but Splevin had Dust Shoot there, so that's kind of rough. But yeah, graceful pitching the Book and the TT. It looks like they set a Reaper, or summoned a Reaper probably, which met with a TT maybe. But it looks like PJ's on Apprentice Monarchs here. So they're going to give control of the Apprentice position to Splevin. And now the question is, are they going to pay the 2,000 when they attack in here to get over the Apprentice? And, okay, no pump. I think that is smart. Because then the Fairy Lily would only have 1 pump left, because you'd go down to 2,600. And then that would be weird. I might be ground or rock types. That, I mean, honestly, that could fit. I could see that being the case. So, got like a rock and roll. But yeah, setting down a Magician of Faith, but that'll get met with a Zaborg here off of the Sidra, and then Zaborg attacking in for 24. So this isn't turning out too well for PJ so far. And this is sort of like one of my complaints with Apprentice Monarch or Apprentice whatever you're doing. Because it's cool when you get the combo off, but at the end of the day, you're doing something relatively passive. Like, unlike something like with Dead Rat, then, so in the experience, the way that Apprentice Magician works actually changes in this format. So you can actually do the Apprentice swap thing. It's very weird. I don't know why that was a ruling that changed around this time, but they did rule it that way. So now you can actually give Apprentice to your opponent and then crash into it and get the set. Yeah. So that's why people are experimenting with that, because it's like, you know, oh, it's legal now. Let's test it out. But the issue with it, in my opinion, is like you're ultimately doing something like really passive, right? You are getting some value off it, but okay, it looks like PJ won the first game, and then Splevin went first. Okay, that makes sense with the Dutch shoot TT there. But you are getting like some value off of it, but ultimately, I think, you know, it's setting up a play for next turn that's very telegraphed to your opponent, so they can sort of play around whatever is happening next. It's sort of like the issue that I had with Diamond New Turbo when I tested that out, where have we got another burn player here? Okay, this looks like Stein OTK maybe. But either way, that's not going to be good for them if it is Stein OTK, because Megamorph is, well, no, not Megamorph. The 5,000 life point threshold is getting cracked down here, so that's going to be a bit rough for them there. But yeah, it's like I don't like decks that do something and get some value, but like the value is like very telegraphed, so your opponent can just play around it, right? One of the powerful things about Monarchs or other things like that is that you don't know which Monarch's coming down. So you have to think like, okay, do I play around Zaborg? Do I play around Mobius? Like, you know, how do I deal with this, right? You can play around them a little bit by trying to keep them off like tribute materials, so that way they can't bring out their Monarchs in the first place. But with things like Sidra, you know, they often have instant access to those tribute materials. So it's oftentimes easier said than done. Whereas, you know, a deck like Apprentice Monarchs, it's like you get out like a Moth or an Old Vindictive or something, or even another Apprentice, and your opponent's like, okay, if it's Moth, they're getting back this spell, doing this, or I can, you know, sort of maybe do this to make them get back this spell instead, and that works out for me this way. Or, you know, if it's Old Vindictive, it's like, okay, they've got a way to pop my monster, so I'm not going to commit this into this, and stuff like that. And same thing with Diamond Dude Turbo, where it's like, let's say you hit Death Croaking. It's like, okay, they're going to get an entire board prop that's strong, but I don't commit anything to field this turn, and then I just, you know, wait for them to do something next turn, right? So, yeah. Oh, Nimble Manga, very interesting here. So this will be able to gain them the life that they need to get back into Stein range, potentially. So that is good to know. But if the Mobius hits over the Cyber Dragon, then that won't quite do it. And same thing with the Injection Fairy Lily hitting over the Cyber Dragon. So, yeah, and I think you do just have to do this. Yes, Clemens is gaining 2,000 later, but this 2,000 won't be able to get them back above Stein range, because you'll be at 5,000 exactly. So I think that makes a lot of sense there from Helio. And then they're going to pass back to Clemens here. So what will Clemens do? That's the question on everyone's minds. Or on my mind, at least. I don't know. The other questions might be on your mind, but okay, it looks like Clemens is going to wall up a little bit more. So, you know, Helio does know about the double mangas, and now there's one unknown there. What can it be? I don't know what, oh, interesting. They're going for the Dust Tornado now instead of in the end phase. That's kind of neat. I'm not sure why they did that. Maybe they were waiting to see their play here. But, Canopy. What's Canopy? Canopy. Canopy be in a pod. Canopy taste good. I don't know. But okay, it looks like okay, so it looks like Helio is on the deck dev there. And so that's not, well, honestly, that would have been pretty good here if they had a way to trigger that for popping those Momongas. But, you know, the Hydrogeddons will be able to eat into those Momongas anyways, bring out other Hydrogeddons, unless they drew into a Hydrogeddon, which would be obviously quite unfortunate for them. But that face down, what can it be? Oh, that's pretty good. I like that. I do like that. I'm very easy to please when it comes to puns and dad jokes and things like that. I have a childlike sense of imagination there. But hidden in with the Lily as well, so they don't want to pay the life, which makes sense, I think. I think you could potentially go in with the Lily there, especially because you've got another pump with it. But, yeah, I don't think this is bad. But Indie Experience says, for a format named Chaos Return, there's strangely no Chaos nor Return. Seems like Stein Monarch format so far. Now, it is interesting that you mentioned that. I do agree that I think Stein Monarch's in a really good place. I think that Macro Warrior's in a really good place. And I think that Chaos is in a bit of a weird place. Like, you can play Chaos Return, but I honestly think that regular Chaos is a little bit better. However, last week in the Chaos Return locals, Haiku won, or yeah, was it Haiku or was it Model? It was either Haiku or Model, but they won with Chaos Return. So you never know. Chaos Return can still do very well, and you know it has won these events before, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna check to see which one was it. Okay, it was Model. It was Model. Sorry about that, Model. Yeah, it was Model, yeah. I forgot whether it was you or Haiku. So, yeah. It can be tricky to keep track. We hold so many locals here that it can be tough. So, I apologize for that, though. You'll all be local legends, though, in my heart. And on the Discord as well, because we have a role for that when you win the locals. So, yeah, we got quite a number of local legends here. So, it's always cool to see those local legends for that sort of thing. But Model says some horrible deck with Apprentice and no OVM. Oh yeah, I like Old Vindictive when you have those Apprentice decks, because sometimes you do want to go into Old Vindictive. So okay, looks like Dark World Lightning on the back row, and that will be met with a 1200 life point gain there. I generally like doing, okay, well, if you got knocked, that makes sense. Yeah. I generally like doing Dark World Lightning on monsters because there are less ways for them to chain to that. But yeah, this will be the end of the game with the knock there. And yeah, that'll be it. So it looks like Clemens' sort of all-in Stein OTK deck not quite do it. It did win one game of the match, but unfortunately it was not enough to win the entire thing. So very cool stuff there. Oh, it looks like Dump Truck versus Haiku. So it looks like Dump Truck managed to win those other... Oh, no, wait. No, they're facing Haiku to start with. I don't know. My mind is like all over the place. I don't know if it's like because earlier than I normally wake up in the morning. Or if it's because I'm going through some like mental decay. But yeah, I don't know. I've been it's been tough to recall things lately. But not recall things. I still have a good memory, but like sometimes speaking things get weird. Yeah, brain rot. That's the thing. It's brain rot. I'm deep in the memes, you know. I'm deep into ever since I made that top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! GOT video. I've noticed my mind declining, you know. The brain rot has consumed it. So, you know, let that be a warning to you all. Learn from my mistakes. Don't dive into the brain rot. Because it will literally rot your brain. It reminds me of like, you know, there are some drugs that like burn holes in your brain, like literally. Like that's what they do. That's what brain rot is. You know, it's burning holes in our brains. But Sork is going to be pretty good here, banishing that 1,000 trick, shutting off the Souk loop from going through. And Stein is now dead because, you know, Chef Steph's at 2,400. But, you know, if they've got a way to deal with that Sork, this could go badly for Hoy. And Brain Control is a potential way to do that. Now, Hoy does have some ways around that or not. Okay, so this is lethal damage on board if it all goes through. Now, no Mirror Force has been used up. I do think you just attack him with all this. That's Stein's not getting you value anymore. So if it is Mirror Force, it's Mirror Force. I think that's fine. But they could try and do something else here. They could try and circumvent some of the back row in other ways. But yeah. All these years of being an absolute coomer has damaged your prefrontal cortex. No, me specifically. Yeah, me specifically. I agree. My brain, yeah, I don't know. It's filled with the brain worms, filled with the brain rot. Yeah. Me and people in general, honestly. Econ is going to be pretty good here, switching that Chaos Orc to defense. But, you know, I think they didn't have a way to get lethal damage here either way. There is something you can do here. Main 2, you could summon out Souk, flip down the Sork, flip up the Sork, and then banish it with its effect. So I think that's what they're probably doing here. Yeah, it looks like they're going to do that. So flip down the Sork, flip up the Sork, and then banish. And that should work. Because Well, it declared an attack this turn. So actually, you might not be able to switch the battle position at this point. Yeah, because it did declare an attack. So I don't know if it forgets that upon being set down. I know the inverse. I know that like if you it declared an attack, so you can't. Yeah. But you can. Can you knock your own monster? I don't think you can. But yeah, no, it looks like no. So I apologize if I misled there. But yeah, I know the reverse is true. So like, for instance, if you banish with Sork first and then you summon out Sook and then flip up the Sork, you can do that and then attack in, but you can't do it if it declared an attack, I guess. So yeah, so unfortunately this doesn't quite work out for Chef Steph here. But you are forcing, oh, well, that's going to be kind of rough here. Very scary spot to be in. The Sork will go back to Hoy here, I believe. Yeah. It's a game engine issue, not a card effect issue. That's right, model. And that's something to always keep in mind when you're doing like a game and you've got certain like rulings that you're unsure about. In general, the sort of game mechanics are tantamount, right? They will trump other things. Yeah, Sork does go back indeed because it's not like Snatch Steal or something. It's just BrainCon. BrainCon just says take control until the end phase, and so it will go back indeed. Whereas Snatch Steal is just an equip card that continuously equips to it. So yeah, it should go back. But they're checking in the Discord server. So yeah. So it looks like yeah, okay. It looks like they will indeed send it back. So it will go back and the game will continue. Very scary spot for Chef Steph to be in, though, because if Hoy has any other monster, then this will be able to get in for lethal damage here. Unless Chef Steph's playing Karibo, which they might be. I don't know. I would not play Karibo, but other people might because you are in an OTK format, so Karibo could potentially do stuff here. Also, I didn't mention this last game that we saw with banishing the Cyber Sign. Okay. So looks like they do not have a monster. Okay, so Chef is safe for now. But don't look at my deck list. Whatever you do, says Model Zero. Okay, I won't look. I will go into that blind. But I'm excited to see you play, Model. Cause I'm excited to see what you cooked up. But heavy on the econ and the swap there. Another BrainCon might do it. Okay, looks like nope, just 7-1. That might be the Sook. Could be something else. But either way, if it is the Sook, that will help Chef Steph survive. Because it will flip down. Oh, it's okay, that's pretty good. Assailant is going to be pretty good here. Banishing the Sork. And just like that, Chef Steph's back in it. Now, Hoy might have a set here to sort of, either be a bluff or protect themselves. But Breaker will be able to pop that set if they want to. They could just attack in for the 19, but I think it's smart just going for it now. I guess if they had attacked in here, it might have gotten econned, and then they would have kept the counter. But I think that in general, it makes sense to do that there. And Hoy's just going to pass back. It's a very scary spot to be in. Chef Steph can get in at least 2,700. I mean, that Graceful should probably do it there. They just need some way to get into a monster here. And, I mean, I would be surprised if they don't have lethal damage at this point. Comfy, okay, so they're taking a peek at the hand. This, to me, they're either getting more knowledge about what Hoy is playing, or, oh, well, yeah, you send the Sork. Or no, you could send the Zaborg. But I feel like Sork is, oh, okay, it's all lights. But you don't want them to do something like Crash a Darkin. So I think that makes sense. So yeah, you leave them these Borg, and yeah, that's going to be the end of the game. So yeah, very, very intense end of the game here. But yeah, worried about Karibo. You got to do the Comfy first, just in case that Karibo there. But yeah, what a slow roll. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is like, you don't want, if you got guaranteed game, you don't want to like BM and like slow roll and stuff. But I do think in this format, like it does make sense just to go for Comfy before you finish them off if you do have it. Oh my word. Oh, Soul is on something spicy here. I like to see it. So it looks like there's counter fairies with Relinquished as well. Very neat stuff. And this does make sense to me. You may be like, why is this going together? But it does make sense as a Relinquished player in formats like Treasure and Imperial. Oftentimes you do wall up behind a Relinquished and you're sitting on that, basically using it as sort of like a protect the boss monster sort of strategy. And if you're protecting boss monster, one of the best ways to do that is with counter traps. So how do you take advantage of counter traps? You take advantage of them with Bountiful Hardness here. Unfortunately, it's looking like it's not going too well for Soul here. They did have Force Back and Solemn early on, but it looks like that has not helped them get out of this situation. That's part of the issue with counter fairies, is that, like, let's say you're, like, using your counter traps to negate things and drawing cards and stuff. Like, what are you building to? The deck lacked a punch in the end, and I think that's a big issue with it. It's not as big of an issue, like, in later formats where you have things like Meltiel, or just things that can get more value out of your counter traps. You also have better counter traps in general, more flexible counter traps. But in this format, you don't quite have enough there, and you don't quite have the punch to get in and actually kill your opponent after negating their stuff, right? Like a set monster, like what do you do against that? I mean, this deck's answer would be probably relinquish, suck it up, but like in general, what does counter fairies do? And it doesn't really have a good answer to that yet. So I think that's one of the biggest flaws with the deck, and why the deck will honestly probably not be good anytime soon. But it looks like there's more than just counter fairies. It looks like it's chaos counter fairies. PJ, I believe one day you will indeed top locals. Just got to keep grinding, keep going, and getting those things in. But yeah, you'll definitely do it someday. But yeah, Soul is cooking, and they're going to banish that Mobius there. Summon the Chaos Orc in defense. That is the right thing to do, in my opinion. If you leave it in attack, they just crash in with the tomato and maybe get something else. I'm not sure what they would be able to get here that would really be that good in this situation, but you don't want to give them the option to do that, right? So I do think that in defense is right. The one punish to this. Oh, well, okay. You got another Sork too. If you got another Sork, I think probably an attack is the right thing to do, because you don't want to get eaten alive by a Cyber Dragon. But I mean, I don't think it matters that much. If they draw Cyber Dragon, they draw Cyber Dragon, and that'll get hit over by another Sork here instead. But it looks like they're just going to set one pass back. Now, the question is, does Soul go for lethal by switching these both to attack? Or do they just attack him with one and say, this is a good enough position that I'm probably going to win the game no matter what? Looks like Saku will eat that up. So, playing around the mirror, but unfortunately, could not get in for the other Sork there. I'm excited to see what Splevin is on. We saw Splevin's deck a little bit earlier. We saw Lily, which is definitely not a standard pick. But I'm excited to see what else they've cooked up there. But yeah, this is kind of rough for Soul. I think you just got to switch the Sork to attack and get in. It seems awkward, but like at a certain point you got to push. You can't give Monarchs enough time to sort of recover their position. So yeah, it's weird, but I think you got to do it. I could see saving it though, but I think you just got to go for it here, honestly. I think they probably should have just gone for it. I mean, again, Mirror Force is a thing. You don't want to play into Mirror, but like, I don't know if they saw Saku's out of their opponent game one. So, maybe it was correct just to do the one attack in. But here, I think, I don't know. I mean, I get passing. Like, Saku is annoying, but like, you got to eat through this eventually. And you got to get in for damage, right? You got to finish off the game. But that's just me. Like, I've been more of an aggressive player in these formats in general, I think. But yeah, now the Warrior Lady comes down. And Soul's got to think about this. They could have a Force Back set. Force Back would send that back to hand. And then I think you'd have to just get in for 2300 next turn, because then you don't want Dean to sort of be able to summon out the thing and attack into the Sork. But yeah, Force Back will get fired there. And you just got to hope that that set is not something real, so that way you can try and go for lethal next turn. But yeah, I think you probably do have to go for that. Otherwise, you just leave. You wouldn't have used the Force Back. So I think Soul is going aggressive here. That's my read on this. Because otherwise, there's no reason to Force Back there, because you let the Warrior Lady crash into the Sork, and then you save Force Back for a later threat. Yeah, and they are indeed going to switch that to attack and attack in. So, Call is getting fired, and Tomato, yeah. A bit awkward here. Do you attack into the Tomato? I think there is an argument for it. You're dealing 900, and then Dean has to attack in for 1500 here. Or they're taking 8 from that. So yeah, I think honestly, I would have attacked in there. It seems weird. They've got tribute fodder no matter what. So I think you just attack in. It does deck thin for them, but like, I do think it is the correct move there. Because now they just bring out Warrior Lady and they attack in for 14, and now you're at a much worse position than if you'd dealt that 9. Like, what's the worst thing they can get here? Reaper, probably. But like, Reaper is very risky for them if you've got any sort of way to stop the Warrior Lady. So, I don't know. And also, if they attack in with Reaper, they're leaving themselves open for a lot of damage, right? So I don't know. But you know, Soul gets to see their cards, and we do not. And also, as I always say, it's a lot easier to commentate, sit back, you know, relax, and you know, sort of shout things at people who actually have a stake in the game. Whereas we're just watching here. So you know, I'm not trying to sort of backseat duel or anything like that, because again, you know, we don't have all the information here. So we also didn't see game one, so that also might be informing what Soul's doing here. Okay, it looks like Sydra's coming down here. I feel like with the Sidra, again, like, you had more reason to attack into the tomato, because now they'd be at 200, right? And they knew they were losing the Stork either way. So, like, yeah, I really don't, I don't get why they, oh, maybe they drew Sidra for turn, so, yeah. Well, so Gerbil says, you might not be trying to backseat duel, but I am. Soul, you need to tribute set Summon Skull right now. I agree. Setting tribute setting Summon Skull would be great. Plays around BrainCon, which is very important. You know, we have seen Monarchs out of Dean here, so I could see a Monarch deck incoming. And yeah, so you gotta tribute set that Summon Skull. It blocks off the Sangan, and I think that it makes a lot of sense there. And I know that Soul is playing the Summon Skull. I mean, you see the Relinquished here. Well, I guess in the Banish Zone here. So they're playing some DM stuff. We know that Summon Skull's in there too. You know, you can't play this sort of deck without Summon Skull in there. You know, it's just too iconic. But Soul's in a bit of an awkward spot here now. I feel like, it's a bit tough. You got to decide whether to attack into the set. I think they're saving it because they're like, well, okay, if they flip summon, one, it plays into force back, maybe if they've got that, and two, it's a monster and attack here. But yeah, Knight Assailant will be able to pop the Sidra there. And now I think they can just go for lethal here with the Sangan. Not too much risk in that. And yeah, this is going to be very bad for Soul. Okay, they do have negate attack, so that will stop things here. And now Dean's in a very dangerous position with that Knight Assailant in attack mode there. They could have a Book of Moon, but Book of Moon is limited in this format, so not the most likely thing in the world. And this is a very, very scary spot to be in for them. What is Soul going to do? Yep, going for Breaker. I think this makes a ton of sense here. TT hitting that. So this will be able to get the Sangan Search and threaten lethal next turn for Soul. But the question is, what are they going to search? Probably another Tomato. Okay, Decoichi, that works too. But I feel like Tomato would have been better here. Maybe they're only playing 2 Tomato. Maybe that's it. But, or maybe they do have the book set. But MST on the new back row, I think. And that probably will do it, I assume. But you never know. You never know what Soul's other set is here. Should have done both. Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, that is going to be the end of the game. Okay, so I guess they had the Solemn there and they did not set it. Yeah, I think at that point you do need to set the Solemn just to have insurance on your game plan, because you're trying to push for lethal, so you don't want them to be able to do anything there. So yeah, I think that setting the Solemn would have been the correct thing there. But you know, you live and learn. You know, every time you play, you get better with the deck. And yeah, so is Yammer and Danny okay, that's not our tournament. Okay. It can be tough to sell sometimes, but we've got Model versus Dump Truck. Let's dive into that one because I want to see what Model's on. Okay, it seems like pretty interesting already. You know, we see a Sure Priest, we see Cyber Dragon here. And also Triple Thundra. So summoning out a, okay, oh, it looks like they searched out a Spy there. And now getting in for 2100. Dump Truck is below the Stein range. Again, you'll always want to play the Stein minigame when starting out in a duel in this format. Just trying to get them below 5,000 as quickly as possible, and that did work out here. So MST firing against that back row, hitting an Econ there. So that might mean that Dump Truck has an aggressive move here that they want to insulate against, you know, back row. Could just mean that they're trying to get that value there. But it looks like they are going for the Sidra here and just crashing in with that opposing Sidra. And now they can set the Spy relatively safely and set another back row as well. So it looks like it's a pretty good spot for Dump Truck to be in right now, despite being below the Stein range. And that's one of the powerful things about Monarchs, is that even if you drop them below the 5K, they still have ways to kill you. You know, they don't need Stein to win. They just have Stein to win if they, you know, can go into that. But looks like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Going for a creature swap here. So swapping the Assure Priest with the set monster, and then the Assure Priest returns to hand at the end of the turn. So that's going to be pretty decent. Yeah, and just passing back. Nothing Dump Truck can do with that Assure Priest there. So, yeah, it's pretty good. It would be funny if, I'm trying to think of a Wing Beast Fiend, because, like, if you could, like, Icarus attack, or not a Wing Beast Fiend, a Wing Beast Spirit. If you could Icarus attack, you know, the monster that your opponent gives you off the swap. But I don't really think that there is one worth playing at this point in time. Oh, there's like there's the one that like gives you life points when you attack in. I think it's like Fushi no Tori. Yada's actually a fiend. That's why I was thinking about this to begin with, because Yada you'd think would be a wing beast that would work there, but it actually doesn't, which is wild. It works with like Bark's Dark Ruler, so that's neat with Yada. Which can allow Yada to get over other things, which is kind of funny. If you do want to tech that in to, you know, sort of like a fiber format deck, just going for Yada, all in on the Fiends. But, yeah, it is a bit tricky. Mobius here, popping a TT, but the TT will get chained and hit a Treeborn Frog. That's really good for Dump Truck, getting that Frog in rotation. Now, I'm not sure what Monarch they can really bring out here, Thessalos and Mobius, but, like, you might want to save the Mobius. Yeah, Breaker should be fine. Getting in for 19, that's good enough. Now, there is a risk if Model is on Stein of their own, then they could potentially go for lethal here, but that back row is going to complicate things if they do want to consider that. But, interesting. The only Fiend Spirits in 22 years of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Indie Experience says, are Yatagarasu and Aratama. That's two very powerful spirits, too. Spirits that generally saw play. So, it's kind of neat. I am looking forward to seeing Spirit's evolution over time. You know, a lot of people think about Aratama and Nikitama. I'm generally thinking of the Duelist Genesis Spirits, where like Izanami or Izanagi or something, and also the one that like you get to banish a spirit from graveyard to bring it out. I think those are really cool. So I'm excited to show those off when we get to the Duelist Genesis. A lot of cool stuff in the Duelist Genesis and around that time period. I think that Karibo here. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So keeping them above the Stein range makes a lot of sense. But yeah, once we hit like Strike of Neos in terms of pack design, I think it's like all really good. Before that, it's still a bit iffy. But I like to see how the packs continue to evolve over the course of GX's history. I will be covering the next couple packs relatively soon, because I think that we're honestly like pretty done with Chaos Return coverage in terms of like the main channel. Of course, we'll be having the tournament going on the Discord server. So don't worry, there will still be Chaos Return content coming. However, you know, I'm trying to think of like other sort of like decks that I could play that are like new from Enemy of Justice, and I just can't really think of too many. But Magic Gerbil says, when you get to Dimension Force, you can see Spirit X's sister, only 10 years away. Oh, I'm excited with that. I'm excited with that. But yeah, I do think, as Splevin says, people are learning the Dust Shoot technology. I do think that, honestly, maxing out on Dust Shoot is not a bad thing in this format, especially given that Monarchs is very popular. Dust Shoot's really good against Monarchs. So even if you're in sort of like, so if you're in like one of the hardest matchups in the format, Dust Shoot's really good. But even if you're not in that matchup, Dust Shoot is just so powerful if you can get it off. So many decks are hurt by that. The only one that really isn't is like Warriors, because they've got Rhoda. But even then, if they don't have Rhoda in hand, you're still sending them back one. Also, you know, if you know about Rhoda in hand, you could save the other Dust Shoot if you're on multiple for after they go for that Rhoda. So, yeah, I think that Dust Shoot is very, very good. I think that people are going to be playing a lot of it. That would be my biggest prediction for the upcoming monthly tournament. And, Splevin says, I think people are still missing 2 key cards, though. Mystery cards. So we might have to wait until after the tournament to see what those 2 cards are. I don't want to force Splevin to give away their technology before the big event. But I'm excited to see what those are and what people experiment with. Maybe Injection Fairy Lily. We did see that in Splevin's list earlier in the locals here. So that could be one, and that does make sense. Injection Fairy Lily, if it gets in for a direct attack, that instantly accomplishes the Stein minigame, gets them below 5,000 right away. And that's a pretty good position to be in. So that could be it. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what technology abounds in this upcoming tournament there. And in the experience of Maharagi, I think, is an underrated spirit and should see more play in these older formats. Allows you to draw the second card on top of the deck if you don't like the one you'd normally be drawing. Maharagi is an interesting one. I think that there definitely could be experimentation with Maharagi. It just, I don't know, it always has felt underwhelming. to me. But yeah, Lily, very, very strong. Budget Stein won, still having 2 games on here so far. So that's pretty cool. Summon out Karibo just to hit into the Treeborn Frog to then set up for a creature swap or an Econ. Okay, Econ works too. That makes a lot. Oh, this is actually a really sick play. So you're getting back, you're getting that breaker, and then going in to the assailant there. Now the Treeborn Frog will come back, so that part doesn't really matter too much. But either way here, very, very cool stuff. Red Solaris says, Counter Fairies couldn't do it, Sag, but I think the theory has potential. 3 monsters with another solid normal from Artemis and sets up the discard counters. That is true, but I think the issue, as I mentioned, I guess you were playing and not watching, which is good. But I mentioned in the, oh, well, yeah, Premat will also do it there instead of the Mobius. So yeah, Dump Truck, able to take that first game. Pretty intense in the beginning, but, you know, unfortunately, you know, Model not able to get that first game, but you know, we have seen Model beat Dump Truck, I think, twice in a row, these 2 past locals, so I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to win the game there. But yeah, I think the issue with Counter Fairies is that they don't have anything that, like, they're building to. I think the Chaos Orcs and the Relinquish that you were playing in the deck do potentially give that outlet for something to build to, but I think that's honestly too slow for Counter Fairies, which seems weird because Counter Fairies is a slow deck. But the thing is, like, as you're activating the counter traps, you're burning through resources, burning through life points. So the deck doesn't really want to have, like, a super long grind game, in my opinion. Of course, a grind game can go well if you got double Artemis, but we just don't have enough counter traps to really make that sort of thing worth it. Because after you've gone through, like, your Solemns, like, things get really scary. Because, like, you just don't have flexible counter traps at that point. You've got Magic Jammer, which is very good as well. You've got Negate Attack, which can protect you for a couple turns. But still, at the end of the day, like, you're not replacing the Solemns with actual negation in general. And that's very scary. And that is a big flaw with the deck. So you kind of need to have a more aggressive way to push through damage, in my opinion. And unfortunately, Counter Fairies doesn't quite have it. Voltanis is meant to be that, but I don't think it's quite good enough. I don't think it's valuable enough to actually play. But going for a meta here into a Restrict, sucking up that Cyber Dragon there. So this is a 2100 beater. If that managed to connect a couple times, can drop Chef Steph below the Stein range. Of course, you know, you can't really go for Stein now because Restrict stops that. But MST there on these sets, so they could have potentially saved themselves from that 2100, but they valued the set there a bit more. And I think that does make sense. You know, really, you know, people say the only life point that matters is the last. You're kind of in a similar situation here when you're above 5,000. You know, the only life point that matters in that regard is the last life point you got there before 5,000. And unfortunately, that life point will get washed away potentially here, but nope. Saku will stop the Restrict. So that will prevent them from dropping below that 5,000 life point threshold. Now, Dean does have a set monster there. So that would complicate a potential Stein OTK if they're going to push for that. But, you know, I don't think it's the worst position to be in for Chef Steph here. So Reaper getting flipped up. Will that go through? Is the question. And Chef Steph is thinking. So that means they might have a... Okay, they do indeed have the TT, yeah. That would have been my guess there. And, open floodgates. If Chef Steph has a Stein here, then this will be the end of the game. But it looks like they're just going to set one and pass. So no Stein in hand. Stein is not limited in this format, but a lot of people only play one because you've got the Last Will package to go into it. Last Will is also limited, so, you know, that's a bit tricky. But, yeah, Vortex said, in case hand rip is real, just use Electric Snake. You know, that, I mean, honestly, Electric Snake would be a funny side here for things like Spirit Reaper or Don's Lug or things like that. I'm trying to remember if people experimented with Electric Snake in Reaper format. I don't think they did. I think you need more like high value draws in general in Reaper format and in Chaos Return format by extension. But it is a very, very funny deck. And I wouldn't be surprised if people do experiment with it at some point, right? Because like on the paper, it makes some sense, right? Like if you're playing Reapers or Don's Lugs or things like that, and you're playing against that, like if they rip out like a snake or something, you're feeling really good about that. Unfortunately, you know, there's no duo to also proc the snake. Comfy doesn't proc snake, but you just pick a different card instead. Deshu can shuffle back snake, which is really annoying. So yeah, oh, this is exact lethal here. Wow. Yeah, that's going to be the end of that game there. So Dean taking that one. But you know, that game is far from over. And we got some other games. Where are all the games? Okay, we got Dump Truck versus Model. Are there only 2 games going on right now? Okay, yeah, there are only 2 games. That's why. So Dump Truck versus Model and Dean versus Curry. But yeah, oh, Brow is a better Snake. That's right, Soul. Yeah, that's probably why people don't play Snake, because Brow's just a better Snake. So that makes sense. So Gerbil says the idea that the only life point that matters is the last really doesn't feel like it applies to these older formats, and that is, to some extent, I think true, right? Because life points matter a lot more in these formats, so you can't really be like, oh, I'm just going to use life points as a resource the entire game, and it, like, probably is not really worth having that attitude, because then, you know, you're just at a point where you can just die to anything, basically, right? So I do think that, like, in some ways that phrase is not accurate, but I also think in others it can be, right? It really does depend on the case-by-case basis for a lot of these old formats, I think, and, like, the game states themselves, right? You can't really hold on to a hard and fast rule surrounding it, because at some points in the game, you do want to use your life points as a resource, and you're fine going down very, very low, because you know that, 1, you're not dying from that, and 2, you've got something to potentially win on the crackback, and you need to save your card to stop something else, right? So, you know, that's a potential case where you would want to, you know, use your life points as a resource. However, you know, if you're in an empty game state and stuff, let's say your opponent has like just 1 monster, you've got 1 Saku, that's all either player has. You want a Saku, that 1 monster attacking in, even if it doesn't kill you, because in general, you want to simplify the game state further, right? You want to get down to a point where you have the sort of tempo and aggressive pressure there. And so I do think that, like, it does depend. It depends on the situation, but that is a very good point, that maxim does not, like, fully apply to these formats. So Necomane King would be very funny, Vortex, as an anti-hand rip tech. But yeah, I do think that overall the Dark Worlds are probably the best, as other people are saying here. But yeah, CS Thunder Dragon was spotted in the first game between Model and Dump Truck here. So don't worry, Rex Speedman is going to be eating good tonight if they watch that stream here. So, although I think Goat Forum might be streaming now, so JDT might be doing their own stream. So, in which case, definitely after this stream ends, check that out if it's still going. Because it should be a pretty good one, probably. I've never been disappointed with the JDT stream. So, Cyber Dragon getting flipped up here and attacking in to that token that was swapped over. And, I mean, Scapegoat, very, very good creature swap anti-tech there. But it is limited, so, you know, it was a bit lucky that Dump Truck had at that point. But they're probably playing Scapegoat in this deck anyways, maybe? Or I don't actually know. We have seen meta out of them, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were playing Scapegoat main. Gotta drink down that water, soothe my aching throat. But, yeah, a bit tricky for Model here. They do have 3 back row, so that's something. They also know what the set is. That's also something. But, yeah, I'm not sure what they do here against this board. I mean, if you got a Surepriest, that's going to be pretty good. Oh, JDZ got a World invite in EWCQ. Nice. Or they're stealing Worlds invites, so maybe they're just knocking people out. But, yeah, JDZ, very good duelist in whatever format that they, you know, put their mind to. But, yeah, well, I know that they've been playing a bit in War League. So, you know, tearing up the Edison scene as well as Goat. But, yeah, I mean, Edison, I think, Edison and Goat, I really do hope that more people from both play the other one, right? Because I think they're both great formats. I think that they both provide, like, they scratch a different itch for me, you know? So, oh, Moth. Ooh, that is, yeah, that's rough. Getting back that Goat, very, very good there against the creature swaps and just giving you more defensive force there later. So, yeah, that's kind of rough, but I do think it makes sense to, you know, hit into the Moth there. But yeah, it's a bit tough of a spot to be in for Dump Truck. But yeah, honestly, I mean, my general philosophy is just like play as many formats as you want, and yeah, I think anyone can benefit from playing more formats than they already. Well, maybe not if you play like a ton of formats, but like if you just play Edison, you just play Goat, you just play Modern, just play whatever. I think that it can honestly help out your mindset a bit, just to sort of play some other formats and try some out that are like relatively different than the ones that you enjoy, because then you can sort of just, you know, get that new change of pace and refresh yourself if you're going into a different format. But Blind Venus says Reaper is the superior Goat format. Changed my mind. Ooh, that's a spicy take there. That's one spicy meatball. I think the Reaper format, like, I know it was initially framed as like, oh, Reaper format is going to be the better GOAT format, and that's why everyone like latched onto it when MBT popularized it. I think the Reaper format is too different from GOAT to actually like directly compare them that way. Because Reaper format, like, you have games that end in like an instant because of Stein OTK, and that's just a factor of the format. You never really have a game like that in GOAT format. You have some games that like can end relatively quickly, but even then, like, it's generally longer than the just OTKs that you see in Reaper. And I think that like when you don't have those Reaper OTKs, the games go like super, super long. And it's kind of like an interesting dichotomy. And I do enjoy that. I enjoy Reaper a lot. But I do think that like it is very different from GOAT. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is better than GOAT or worse than GOAT. I would just say it's very different from GOAT. And whether you like that better or whether you like GOAT better, it will really just depend on your preference. So, yeah. How does Chaos Return compare to GOAT? Honestly, that's a bit of an interesting question. I don't quite know. Well, I feel like that's the weird thing about ending my coverage of Chaos Return soon. I feel like I still don't have a grasp on what makes this format unique. And I don't know. It's just like I feel like I've covered all the new decks, right? Because I mean, Enemy of Justice honestly did not add too much. Graceful coming back did improve some decks like Dark Worlds, technically FTKs, I guess. But as I mentioned in my Heroes video that I released the other night, I'm not sure if I'm going to cover the FTKs, but I don't know if that's enough. I'll probably do a little bit of library FTK. You know, I do like the library FTK sometimes, so maybe I'll do a bit of that with the Graceful add back. But I feel like there isn't much change from Reaper, and that's pretty weird because you know, most of the time, I mean, not most of the time, I guess there are some formats where there isn't really much to cover, but I feel like the first one where like, yeah, there truly is not much to cover. Maybe it's just like there's a minimum amount of new decks to cover in this format compared to the previous formats that I've covered. So I guess that's what I'll say. And that's very weird, like, because I know Chaos Return very popular. You know, as Souls mentioned, Joji Yolanda liked Chaos Return. A lot of other people like Chaos Return as well. Very popular format. But just overall, like, I don't necessarily know where I fall on it. And I think that some of my opinions of it will get ironed out in the monthly tournament, because I am going to play in that. But, you know, I don't know. I'll have to wait until after the monthly tournament to really be able to make a good comparison there. Splutton says, I haven't seen a single macro deck today. That's kind of interesting. We didn't see any really in last locals either. We saw Lalo on it. Lalo was on a macro deck, but they got knocked out first round in that locals. So it is kind of interesting, because I feel like maybe people think that macro it's too much of a known quantity, and so they don't want to play it. But I don't know. We'll have to see exactly what people do in the tournament, because maybe also people are just like, well, I don't want to play in the locals because I want to try something else out, right? And Splutton said that they almost brought Macro Monarchs, and maybe other people are like that as well, because there are potentially people out there that are like, I want to just play something fun in the locals today, you know, test something out, see how I like it, but I'll probably just play macro in the actual tournament. That was the winning deck list, so I wouldn't be surprised if people were on it. And yeah, so I don't know. Well, we'll have to see in the actual tournament. And PJ says, I guarantee there will be several macro decks in the tournament, and I would not be surprised if that was the case. So yeah, Assurepre's eaten all those tokens. Now Creature Swap could be incoming here. Econ. Oh, Econ's pretty neat. No, it's switching it to defense, I assume. Just to attack over it with the Ashura. Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes more sense to do this. I mean, they could be getting in for damage. That is true. But yeah, they don't take 17 here, because this can't actually attack directly after this. It's just attacking over the monsters. But yeah, Econ got the BrainCon update. Yeah, Econ, I think... Or are you talking about, like, did they get an errata for Econ? That'd be very sad if that's the case. But yeah, Econ I think is the better BrainCon in this format, in my opinion. I mean, I could argue that Econ is just the better BrainCon in general, but I think that Econ just being able to use a quick play speed, being able to, you know, pair with Treeborn Frog especially is very nice. So I don't know. I like Econ a lot. I think it's very, very neat. But I hope it never gets errated like BrainCon. BrainCon being errated is just so frustrating. Where's Brain? Okay, neither player have played BrainCon yet. But I just do not like the BrainCon errata. But yeah, I think running both is perfectly fine, especially if you're on a Monarch deck. It makes a lot of sense to be playing the BrainCon and the Econ. Minecon, maybe not so much in this format, but okay, no Econ rot. I just misinterpreted then. That's my bad. That's the brain rot at work. You know, we were discussing the brain rot earlier. But yeah, okay, this will take both players out of Stein range. So Dumbrick is saying, you know, I'm getting us both out of there. I guess they could have gotten out of Stein range, but it's attacking him with Treeborn Frog. But that essentially would have probably taken them out of Stein range. Because then your opponent just attacked in with anything. And then no Stein range for you. But I think it's a really good position for Dumtrick to be in. 7-1, sitting on that Zaborg. And Assure Priest will come down. I mean, we did know about that Assure Priest here. And it will attack over the Frog. And also here. Oh, okay. Oh, I get you. Yeah. So someone was joking about the Econ thing because Model took the Mobius without Tribun. Yeah, that's one of the things about TB where, you know, on a automated simulator like Master Duel or something, there would be no ambiguity there. But here it's like Dumtrick can just give the Mobius to there. But yeah, Swap would be pretty good here. Vortex, I mean, I guess it doesn't really change much either way. And this does give Dumtrick less information overall when choosing that spell. Oh, Dust Shoot there. Okay, okay, Dust Shoot coming up. Coming in clutch. But yeah, I really do hope that they sort of unerrata BrainCon, as Soul says. Yeah, Change of Heart and Mind Control are both in the game, and those cards not really do anything. BrainCon does not need to die for other card sins, you know. But yeah, Dust Shoot shuffling back a powerful card there, but you know, Dumbrick still has the Scapegoat, which not quite as good in the face of that Assure Priest. But you know, the Frog is walling up against that Assure Priest, so that's something. But I feel like Dumtrick probably just you know, activates Scapegoat in the end phase here to wall up against Assure Priest that way. Although then you're not getting the value off of that Scapegoat, so I don't really know. I don't know. Well, I guess no, because they can't really decide here because yeah, they can't summon the turn they activate Scapegoat. So yeah, a bit tricky for Dumtrick. They're gonna bring out this Exile, just poke in for 1,000 damage. I think that's fine, honestly, because your opponent's down to so low that this is honestly not a bad spot to be in. But it is a little bit awkward here because you generally want to save Exile for, you know, popping a monster, but you know, sometimes you do what you have to. Let's see. Do they have Chaos? They do have Chaos set up in Grave as well, because we have seen some Chaos Orcs here. So Chaos Orc could be a top deck that is very good for them. Survivor. I mean, speaking of macro here, Survivor coming down, hitting over that Exile there. And so that is a body just to stick on field. Will they activate the Scapegoat here? Do they have like a Zaborg or something? Nope. Looks like no Scapegoat activation. So they're saving that for a more defensive purpose. I think that makes sense. Rhoda here will be pretty good, getting them a search. What are they going to search, though? Exiled is gone. Can't search out that. Do they have just a Survivor of their own, maybe to crash? But maybe they're on Survivor as well. Yeah, Survivor could be a thing. Assailant, obviously not the best. But maybe you're going to bluff to your opponent what your set is. But yeah, it does not really deal with Survivor there. Yeah, it's a bit rough for them. Maybe that's the only warrior they had in deck. That could also be a possibility. We have seen Exiled. We've seen level 2. We see this Warrior Lady banished there. So yeah, they're just passing back. Zambira. Yeah, Zambira would have been good there. Oh, Charity. Oh, that is rough for Dumtruck. But yeah, Charity's going to be pretty good, filtering through Model's deck a little bit here. I'll just see whether they keep the Assure Priest or not. In the face of Scapegoats, it would make sense to keep the Assure Priest. They're going to pitch a Blade Knight. And what else are they going to pitch? What else are they going to pitch? They're thinking here. They are thinking. As an important note, because this could come up in this turn even. As an important note, Battle Phase replay. Oh my goodness, I can't speak today. This is what happens when you get me early enough in the morning. It's not even that early. But Battle Phase replay works the way it does in modern formats in Chaos Return. It does switch after Reaper. So we do have the modern way of replay. And that means that if model declares an attack with a monster here, then it must continue the attack, or you won't be able to redeclare the attack later in the turn. And that could come up here. So I think what you generally have to do is attack in with the Survivor. Okay, they're attacking with the Assure Priest first, getting the guaranteed 17. I think that makes sense. Yeah, this does get in for the guaranteed 18 or 17 here. How do I feel about Acid Trap Hole? Depends on the format. This format, I don't really think it's that good. I think there are other better ways to deal with set monsters, like Ceasefire, Knock, things like that. You could use Acid Trap Hole in a flip-focused deck to, sort of get around those cards. But I feel like flip-focused decks is not quite where it's at in this format. I don't think they're that good. I guess Apprentice Monarch, you could maybe use it, but then you're popping your own, like, Apprentice Edition oftentimes, so it's not really that good either. So, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Acid Trap Hole here. It is an interesting card for sure, but I just don't like it. So it looks like Econ take the Survivor, so this is threatening lethal damage if model does not have a way around this. And that's just going to go in for the 1800 there. Scapegoat of their own, okay. So that will wall up a little bit here, but Dump Truck might not attack into those tokens, just leaving, yep, they're not going to attack into the tokens. I think that's very, very smart there, because now model can't commit the Assure Priest to field. So that's pretty good. The Treeborn Frog just walls up here, and Dump Truck has stabilized their position very, very well. Yep, and they're just going to attack into that frog, and probably set, yep, there's another set, and then passing back to Dump Truck here. Very, very grindy game here. Very, very cool game. I like this game a lot so far. And Dump Truck doesn't really have the best options to actually kill Zero here, which is a bit awkward. But yeah, as Soul says, Acid Trap holds the in-between of Knock and Desert Sunlight. And that is a good point. And Desert Sunlight also a better Acid Trap hole in my opinion. So yeah, a bit tricky. Oh, also, I just noticed we've got 15 subscribers. Thank you so much to whoever subscribed. We're trying to reach 1,600 by the end of the month. And we're still quite a ways out, as you can see from the sub count. But I'm looking forward to hopefully reaching that goal eventually. But, okay, it looks like there was a rulings question in the Discord, but that all got resolved. So, should be pretty good there. But that Dust Shoot coming in clutch. And, again, the Dust Shoot technology, if you're on 3 Dust Shoot, while it can be dead late game, you do eventually wind up in these sort of grindy situations sometimes where the Dust Shoots can turn themselves back on, just like there. So, looks like Maul's going to set one pass back. Now, the thing is, Dump Truck might actually be able to win by deck out here. It's not the most likely thing in the world, but if Model does have no way to clear those tokens, then deck out is an option. So, that's also something to consider. Dump Truck going to set one. We do know that they are on Gravekeeper's Spy, so that could be a Spy set. Looks like it's a Tomato instead. This will thin out Dump Truck's deck a little bit. But, they're still well above Model Zero's deck count, so it should work out ultimately. Pot of Avarice is limited, so you don't have another one of those coming in later. But Reaper is going to wall up even further, so, the deck out strategy potentially going to come to fruition here, unless Model has a way to deal with that. They might be on Zaborgs. If they're on Zaborg, they can summon out the Zaborg over the Survivor, pop the Reaper there. But that's not even that good, honestly, because we know about the Assailant. Actually, they might have shuffled back the Assailant. I didn't quite see what they shuffled back. But we know the Assailant's somewhere in deck, and there's 12 cards there, so it won't really be the best even with Zaborg. But I guess if, I guess if Zaborg does clear Assailant, then that banishes both, so then you have a zone cleared up. But yeah, Dark Dust Spirit would go crazy here. That would pop all your tokens, and I think that would be pretty good. But yeah, they need Meta or Swap or Zaborg to win. And we do know that they are on Creature Swap. We have seen one swap out of them. So a swap would do it. Yeah, Zaborging your own token here would be good as well, I guess. But then you have no way to really get through the Reaper. So yeah, I do think that the best thing here maybe is just getting that Restrict online. Okay, they do have the meta there. Okay, so they do have that meta. Gonna go for it in main 2, I guess. And then try and suck up the Frog. That is interesting. I guess this does... Oh, okay, I see why they're doing this. This prevents them from switching the Reaper to defense here. And then you potentially have a line to lethal there. So actually, that's quite clever. I like that. You also could just hit in with the Restrict into the Reaper to lose the Frog and then suck up the Reaper as well. So that's something there too. So there are a couple different things you can do here, I guess. Still a tough spot for Dump Truck to be in here. Model's got sort of the initiative here to do stuff. That's going to be very tricky for them. Okay, they're setting 1, passing back, but it might not matter if Zaborg is, well, actually, we know the Assure Priest is in hand, but if Model's a way to deal with that Reaper. Okay, it looks like they're just going to crash in with the Restrict, take the 200, now suck up the Reaper. But, like, but why? Oh, suck up the set. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's clever. That's clever. Yeah, you don't lose a card from hand because it only applies to direct attacks, which is weird about Reaper. I don't know why it included that, but it's not Don's Luke. So, yeah, that's a bit clever. This does suck up the set. However, you're still in a weird spot because you don't really have enough life points to just keep doing this over and over again. But I don't think it's terrible here. You do have the Scapegoat tokens as a defensive line. Sork will be able to come down, though, and complicate things a little bit here. Banishing that Restrict. Oh, banishing. Oh, no, okay. Banishing the Reaper. That's interesting. So this does stop you from losing the, it basically turns the Restrict off. And it does turn it into a one-side floodgate. Or not a one-side floodgate, but a floodgate for everyone. So Model can't get more aggressive here. A zone is not opened up. So actually, I really like that play a lot. That's really clever. I like this game so far. This is really interesting. I think Dubtrek is in a really good position here. They might be able to just win the whole game on the back of this. Yeah, because like how do they get rid of the Restrict? They need like a I mean, yeah, they not really much does it. They need a Zaborg or just some tribute monster here. And they are losing to deck out if they don't have that. Wild game. Who would have expected it to end like this? Game is not over by any means, but it is effectively over because I don't know how Model gets through all this. I mean, Econ also kind of does it. So if they've got Econ, they can either switch the Treeborn Frog to attack or take the Sork and do things with that. So, okay, maybe they're waiting for double Econ. Double Econ actually could do it because with double Econ, oh, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. Can't switch the token to attack because of the Restrict. So, yeah, no, it's got to be in defense there. Yeah. Okay, it looks like they realized. So, that's all good. Yeah, I mean, doing that doesn't even matter too much here if you could only keep the Restrict at 0. I guess it could crash with the token and then you get a zone cleared up, but yeah. That is changing battle position. They switched the token. But yeah, Tribute Monster would be pretty good here as well. I think they've got ways to win. Yeah, no, it's turning the token to attack. Yeah, because they turned the token to attack, and then they activate swap, and then they're like, oh, I can't do that. So, yeah, so that's all fine. These locals are more casual events anyways, so, yeah, it's not, like, super, super competitive. But, yeah, looks like the other match also wrapped up here, so we have our first semifinals game over there, but I wanna stay watching this, because this is fascinating to me. I don't know how this game's gonna end. I think that, like, double Econ is the best way to do it if they do have double Econ. If they got one Econ as well, no, then they can't really do one Econ, but okay, book on the Restrict is going to wrap it up, I think, because now you switch the token to attack, go for swap, you get something back, but then you suck up the Sork, and that should do it. They could give you Sork, but if they give you Sork, then you just switch the Sork to attack in. So that will do it. Yeah, and that's just going to be the end of the game. So, wow, intense ending of that game. I thought it honestly might have gone to deck out, but it looks like it did not. So, you know, that's just going to be a very, very intense game too there. We got Andrew versus Dean here. I think this is Andrew's first locals, so welcome to the locals, Andrew. And yeah, it looks like that breaker's going to hit into a Mirror Force. Snatch going to take that turtle. Oh, that's not looking the best for Andrew here, but you know, this isn't lethal. Oh, well, maybe that is lethal. Yeah, that will be exact lethal. Wow. Yeah, that was game 2, Splevin. Yeah, you still got a bit to wait for to find out who you're facing. But that was an intense game 2. Oh my lord, that was so cool. I don't know. Some people don't necessarily like that sort of grindy gameplay, but like I think whenever that happens and you get into these very, very interesting game states, it's just always so cool to see. It's kind of like you know, in chess, when people are like, well, the early game up to a certain point is just like going to mimic chess games of the past, right? Because after a certain point, every early game has been done, right? But then when you get to the mid game and the late game, then it becomes a unique game. So it's kind of like whenever you get to a point where it's that late in the game, it's like, okay, now we've got a unique Yu-Gi-Oh game. This has never happened before. It says, why does Jinzo see no play? Tons of powerful traps in this format. Is he just too slow? I think people generally prefer Mobius over Jinzo in most cases because Mobius just pops the back row immediately. So it's guaranteed removal there. And also, you know, Mobius can deal with spells too, which can be annoying, like, you know, Sword of Veil Light or things like that, or Book of Moon Econ. Beats those out right away. And yeah, as Flevin says, people don't play too many traps. There are some very powerful traps in the format, but also, you know, when you got Treeborn Frog in the format, it doesn't necessarily behoove people to play like a ton of traps everywhere, right? Some decks do play it. Jinzo is a very good side deck card for that reason, just like Decree. However, it doesn't quite make the cut in the main deck most of the time. So that's sort of my sort of take on Jinzo. Or not just my take, you know, other people are mentioning in the comments and stuff, and I'm pulling from that as well. You know, a YouTuber is nothing without their community, and you know, so gotta turn the words in the chat into your own sort of statements. Steal the ideas from the followers. That's what I always do. Yeah, Spalding says, I do play the android because he's a menacing machine monster. That is true. There's something to be said about the psychological impact of Jinzo. You know, when that hits the field, it's like, whoa, the machine man has come, you know. Yeah, looks like that graceful there. Getting off to a pretty good start. So Andrew will have to pitch 2 here. So we'll have to see what they pitch. Return. Okay, so that's interesting. Zombie return, maybe? I don't know what's going on here, but that's very interesting to see. I'm curious to see what they're playing. Yeah, pitch and return for 1, I think it makes sense because that's more of a late game card. And Sidra as well. Okay. I mean, that makes sense if you think you're going to establish your position. If you're playing things like, you know, Pyramid Turtle, you probably are. So I think that makes a lot of sense there. Yeah, and as Soul said, like, there are some decks that want to main Jinzo. You know, Reading Gate, I think Machine OTK also, but Machine OTK doesn't really exist in this format. I am a firm believer that Machine OTK does not exist in any format with limited removal at 1 copy. Because there just aren't really ways to do it, you know? Like, either you're Stein OTK, like, with just the 1 of limiter tech, or, like, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't really feel like Machine OTK. I mean, yes, you've got Cyber Phoenix that can, you know, bolster a given machine strategy. But I don't really think it's that good. Or that, like, unique. I think it's just, like, strictly inferior to other decks. And that's also something, like, I generally don't, in a format, cover decks that I think are strictly inferior to other decks. It's why that I'm not covering like pure Stein OTK, because to me, pure Stein OTK, where you're just playing like the Steins and the Megamorphs and all that stuff, it's just worse Steinarch, right? Monarch Stein is much better in my opinion. But yeah. Dean says, I returned from the dead, BTW, came back from holidays. Welcome back from the holidays. Glad to have you with us here. And this is a pretty intense game that you're facing against Andrew here. But yeah, that knock hitting some moths out of both players' decks. But now Andrew's got a clear line to attack in with the assailant here. Will they commit another monster to the field or not is the question. Looks like they're not. I think that makes perfect sense. You don't want to play into TT or something. But unfortunately, that Saku will eat up the assailant there. Now, main 2 could potentially set a monster here. Looks like they're just going to set 1 Spar Trap and then pass back. So that might mean that they don't have a monster, unfortunately, to go into here. But oh, Reaper coming down. That's going to be a bit rough if that connects. They might have to have a way to stop this here. Okay, it looks like Call will indeed stop that if there's no MST from Dean here. So that's going to be pretty good. You go for the Sidra or the Assailant. I personally would probably pick the Assailant, but they're going to go for the Sidra. This does get in more damage, so that does make sense there. But I probably would have done the Assailant just because if you're playing Return, you probably want that banished. But we don't know how many returns there are, so, you know, we don't know. Red Eye Solar says, will there be any burn for Chaos Return? Probably not. I don't think the deck gained anything, really. I don't really think the deck is, like, all that good. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But, like, I personally don't have the most faith in the deck in this format. That's just me. I think Graceful allows a lot of other decks to just get more aggressive with their spell and trap removal and draw into the sided outs that they bring in against Burn. So Dark World Burn is fun. I did show off Dark World Burn. So I count that as sort of like Burn. That will be my Burn video for this format. I love Dark World Burn, Blind Venus. It's so fun. Zoidberg's list was just so cool. And, you know, I might actually be bringing Dark World Burn into the monthly tournament because it is very neat. The call will stay. Call will stay because the cider was tributed and not destroyed. So yeah. So okay. So I'm good on Burn. I'm good on Burn. I don't need to make a stall Burn oriented video here. But you know, I'm always open to returning to formats in the future. I haven't done it recently because I've been trying to get through these Stein formats as quickly as possible because, I mean, a lot of people don't like this era, right? And I will say, after playing format after format of it, it does get somewhat tiring, right? Like, you know, I don't know, Stein OTK is just like, it just feels kind of bad when it happens. Like, I don't think that these formats are bad by any means. Some people are like, oh, Stein OTK exists in them, so the format's bad. I think that's very reductive. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think that if you play a lot of it in a row, it can get kind of tiring. Which is why, one of the reasons why I'm going through these quickly. But also just like in terms of like YouTube algorithm stuff. I mean, I don't generally like go too deep on that because my channel is not really, you know, good for the algorithm. Because basically, like, if you're a regular YouTuber, right, you're generally covering the same sort of Yu-Gi-Oh thing. Either like you're a very competitive player, and so you're talking about like, you know, very competitive things like, you know, Pac or Jesse Cotton or, you know, Joshua Schmidt, like people like that. Or you're like more of an entertaining YouTuber like, you know, Simo or, you know, MBT or something like that. Or potentially you focus in on one format like GOAT format or E3 Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that. What I'm doing here, where I sort of go through every single format, it's not really good for the algorithm because people are not going to like every format. And when I'm in a certain format, if you don't like it, you know, sometimes you're just like, well, you know, why am I subscribed to this guy? I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm not going to watch these videos because I'm not interested in it, etc. And the algorithm does not like that. So, you know, the format of my channel is you know, not really conducive to that. But I'm not really doing this for the algorithm or for growth or something. I would like to grow the community more. But I'm mainly just doing this to sort of put out there, you know, resources for these formats. So I'm fine with that, but it does make things weird. But yeah, Summon Stein Scoop format. I'm excited for Stein format. It should be fun. You know, it'll be a nice way to end our coverage of this period of time. And there are some interesting things, you know, that pop up in Stein format. A lot of new cards are introduced into the card pool, more so than Chaos Return. So it'll be interesting to see there. But yeah, I think Stein's going to be very, very good there. I actually did play in a Stein format tournament back on Format Library a while ago, and I managed to get second place. And the way I did it, it was kind of an experiment for me because all I did was I brought the original winning deck list from the event to the tournament, and I was like, will this deck still win with modern deck building technology and things like that arrayed against it? Didn't win, but did get second place. So, you know, it was still very, very good. And that deck was pure, full-on Stein OTK. Yeah, you're playing triple Stein, playing as many limiters as you can. You're playing Megamorphs, all this, all that. So it's a bit rough there. But yeah, okay, the Sook plus the Nox is going to be pretty good here. Also, Sork is in hand. 2 Sorks, in fact. But no Lights Engraved. So, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world for Andrew here. But yeah, that Sook plus Nox combo, that's going to be pretty brutal there. But, you know, Andrew potentially has a way to recover. Yeah, Vanity's Fiend does come out because Cyberdark Impact comes out, so you can use Vanity's Fiend. Chainburn, also a deck that is in that format. I know that a lot of people don't like Chainburn. I think Chainburn's kind of neat, and so I will be showing off that a bit. A lot of cool stuff. Cyberdark Impact. Oh, what's that? Why is Cydric coming down here? Yeah, no monster on Dean's side of the field, so we can't do that. But, yeah. Oh, Draxix says, IRL events for formats like Critter would be sweet if that could happen. I agree. The issue with that sort of thing, outside of just, like, individual locals, is that, you know, you need to have a large community to actually justify that. I think overall, right? There are exceptions to this. There have been people mentioning in the Discord things like if you like, for instance, if I ever host like a event for like this sort of community where like we play a bunch of formats that are featured on the channel, and I make it a weekend or something, maybe that could do something if people are interested enough in that. If I like just ask interest in the Discord and I make sure that there is a group of people that can come to that, that's something that could potentially happen. But if you're just saying like, okay, I'm going to set up this event for this format in advance and then hope that people sign up to actually reach the amount that would make this worthwhile doing for booking the venue and things like that, that's a bit more risky, right? And in that sort of case, you need to have sort of like a surefire, okay, I'm confident that we can get this amount of people to do it if I just announce this sort of event. And unfortunately, Critter is not quite there yet, I don't think, in popularity. I think Critter has a lot of potential to grow. I think Critter is one of the most skillful formats in the game's history. That may sound weird because, it's the second format in the game. And so people are like, well, can't hold a candle to the more complicated stuff happening later on. But I think that it really tests your fundamentals like no other format does. And it is just, it really does come down to such good play. Like that is how you win games, through perfect play. And it's so, brain stimulating. It's such a good format. And I think that it really could grow in the future because I think that, the format is not too sort of non-diverse, right? You do have a variety of decks coming through. And also, I think that like because of the skill level involved, I think that, listen, PJ, if I could tell you how one plays perfectly, I would do it because I would like to know that as well. And I'd like to spread around the knowledge of that. But I think it's just like having, very good knowledge of like where your turns are going over the next couple turns, what you need to be doing at a certain moment, given the amount of resources you have versus how much your opponent has, and things like that. So, it's just good fundamentals, honestly. But yeah, I think if more people, sort of latch on to Critter and play it more, I think that they would actually enjoy it a lot. I think that it has potential to be one of the biggest DM era formats, bigger than Yu-Gi Kaiba, in my opinion, actually, largely because Yu-Gi Kaiba, okay, it looks like Model vs. Dumptrick is still going on. I'm going to dive into that. But largely because Yu-Gi Kaiba now has like Stall Mill as one of the top decks in it. And that's something that a lot of people are not like too happy with. So, did the Model versus Dumptrick game end? Maybe it did. Wait, I'm gonna look this up. Oh no, there it is. Okay, still going on. Okay, this is a wild game state. Whenever I hop into these games, they're wild. Crazy stuff going on. Okay, it looks like Avarice was fired, so that does put Model. Okay, Breaker. That's interesting. And Dumptrick's thinking on that Breaker. I would be thinking too. TT coming down here, that's going to be a good TT, I think, for Dump Truck overall. They do have Treeborn Frog in rotation as well. And that's going to send a lot of good monsters there. Ooh, that's kind of rough. But, I wonder why they did that. That's interesting. I wonder what play they had. Maybe they had a creature swap. But I feel like creature swap would have been awkward there for a variety of reasons. Yeah, this might be the end of the game. Heavy hitting that back row. Hitting a Vortex. Oh, any Monarch does it except for Zaborg. Cider also does it. Yeah, that'll be the end of the game. Very intense stuff there. Very, very cool stuff. I think they maybe could have not done anything. It depends on what was in their hand there, for sure. Oh, they pulled the Graceful Charity Thunder Dragon combo. Always the dream. That's always the dream. Yeah. But yeah, very, very intense games here, for sure. Awesome stuff. Those were great games there from what we saw of them. But yeah, Zambira enables deck dev. There's potential win con or potential toxicity depending on who you ask. Zambira is a potential thing, especially with deck dev. My issue with deck dev, though, is that I don't think deck dev does enough in this format. I honestly don't think it's really that good. Because, like, think about, the decks that you're hitting. Yeah, Model, I don't know why they summoned the Breaker. I think they could have waited it out. Like, you've basically forced Dump Truck into a position where they need to do something. And if there's something on a Monarch, like, they can't get through your board unless they've got TT. And if they fire the TT, then they're getting rid of their offensive pressure. So it doesn't really matter there. But, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they had something in hand that would have allowed them to win the game there. They didn't want to give Dump Truck the time to draw into something good. Can't tell until you watch back the replay, I guess. But still, very, very intense ending to the game. But yeah. Anyway, I don't think deck dev's that good. Like, getting back on this topic. Because, you know, if you think about the decks that it hits, right? Like, what's it hitting in Monarch? It's hitting maybe, like, Treeborn Frog, Reaper, Sangan, Tomato, things like that. But they still have Sidra if they don't have the Frog in rotation. They still have Frog if Frog actually gets hit off deck dev. That's really good for them. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of tricky. But yeah. Oh, okay. That's why. So, yeah. If it wasn't TT, they actually won. So, yeah. They have to have a monster. And with a back row, I thought they'd be afraid to just summon and swing. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I think that makes sense, model. Again, like, you know, also, I always say this too. It's a lot easier to, like, commentate on the games than to actually, you know, play them. And you never know, like, in the moment what people have. You know, we don't have that information watching from the outside. And also, like, we don't have, like, the actual stakes of the game on the line, right? But yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, if it wasn't TT, you just go for the Vortex, wipe away the entire board, and then you win. Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it kind of has to be TT exactly. Because even if it's, like, Bottomless or, like, Trap Hole, no one's playing those, but, like, even if it was those, then you're still in a good spot. Even if it's deck dev, you win through that too. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's fine. There is an argument to, like, holding it further because, again, like, you know, Dump Truck probably can't, like, necessarily push for game in that situation. So, like, you're probably fine to wait for a bit longer, but I forget the graveyard. I forget if there was spell and trap removal there. And also, you never know what Dump Truck could get. Dump Truck's a very good duelist, and they know how to make a lot of use out of their cards. So, I do think it makes sense just to try and end the game sooner rather than later. And again, you know, you're right. If it you know, was not TT, you do win in that case. So, I think that makes sense. I will defend that play. So, yeah. Yeah, you topped heavy anyway, so it doesn't really matter there. Yeah, so, yeah, I think you played fine. I think you played fine. And I think that I probably would have gone for that in that case as well. So, yeah. But anyway, deck dev bad. Deck dev bad. And yeah, also, that's a good point too, model. Results-based analysis is not how you want to go. So, you know, like, in general, and this is a lesson for everyone, right? In general, when you're thinking about a game and you're replaying in your head and you're looking back on your replays and stuff, it can be easy to be like, okay, well, I lost in this spot, so clearly I made the wrong move. And that's not always the case, you know? Just like it's not always the case where if you win in a certain spot, you made the right move, right? That's not the case. You always got to consider, like, okay, was this actually correct? What are the odds of them having a way to stop this winning play that actually kills me on the crackback? What are the odds of them not having this, you know, and should I have just gone for it instead? Like, could I have done this in a way that's more defensive? Could I have done it in a way that's more offensive? You know, thinking about all those things is very, very important. And I do think that, like, it can be very easy to tunnel in the results. But at the end of the day, you know, the results only apply to one game, right? What applies to multiple games is making sure that you have good play in general and that you're checking the odds, you're checking the chances, you're looking throughout all the different things you can do to make sure that it's the best play possible. And so that is a very important thing to point out. Yeah, and that applies not just to Scales Return format, but any format in general. It even applies to other card games too, not just Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically, any game where you're trying to get good, it applies. So definitely a valuable lesson to learn and keep in mind. But we'll have Splevin versus Dump Truck coming up in this stream later on if we jump into that. But I think this game will probably wrap up before that one does. So the all-important game 3 between Andrew and Dean here. Zombies, you love to see zombies. Zombies, something that, you know, not many people have been experimenting with too much in this format because, one, you know, in Reaper format, Dead Rat has sort of diminished in quality over time. People were really hyped about Dead Rat initially, but then over time, as, you know, it kept joining tournaments and things like that, it just did not bear out. It was not quite there. Going to Zaborg, or not Zaborg, going to Kogi is very strong, but, you know, people are not going to attack into the recruiters as much or leave you the opportunity to do so. So, you know, it's not quite as good as people thought it was. And I think the same sort of issue applies in Chaos Return. But on top of that, you also have Macro Monarchs, which is just like a zombie deck's instant loss to. So, It's a bit tricky there. But yeah, I mean, okay, so like, but again, like, what is it? What decks is it good against Soul for, like, let's say you're playing deck dev in Warriors, like, why are you playing? Why are you siding in deck dev? What decks are you siding in against? Like, a Stein deck generally has other. If it's just pure Stein OTK, sure, like maybe you're trying to hit the Steins, right? And maybe that's fine. But most like good decks in this format are not really that affected by deck dev, right? If you think about Steinarch, right, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't really get hit by it that much because you've still got the Siders, you've still got the Monarchs. Occasionally, you can even set up Treeborns. If you think about like Warriors, the mirror match, like it doesn't really hit much in Warriors. Warriors is about getting out big guys, right? And so you're not really hitting anything with that. I get, like control, chaos control potentially. That would probably be the one application I could see. But even then, you're getting lights and darks in graveyard for their chaos orcs. So it's like, is that the best thing in the world? Is that better than siding into like a knock instead? Or other things of that nature? I don't necessarily know. And knock is somewhat conditional because you need to have your opponent have a set monster. But deck dev is also conditional because you need to have a monster, satisfying its conditions, right? And so I don't necessarily think that it will. I don't know. I don't like the card in this format. Not a terrible side deck card for like chaos control matches, but I feel like every matchup it's got, there's like some awkward interaction with deck dev where it doesn't actually do that well. It's not a format like Edison format where like deck dev is really good in Edison format against certain decks. Just certain decks can't play under it. Here, I think that most decks can play under it. So yes, when you say deck lists are coming next week, which deck lists do you mean? Like for the tournament or for the locals or for because I've been doing a new thing actually with a lot of my videos because, or not quite a new thing. I used to do it and then I stopped doing it because it was a lot of trouble. I didn't think that people really cared about it, but someone mentioned in the YouTube comments like that I should put the deck list for the deck that I do in the YouTube comments, or not in the YouTube comments, but in the description. So I started doing that again, and so I've been doing that. So if you for this, okay, so for the locals, we don't generally show the deck list because oftentimes like it's very close to the deck list that people are bringing for the actual event, and they're testing out the deck list that they're going to play in this. So we don't actually show the deck lists in these. So I'm not going to be showing those. But you can sort of piece together some stuff from watching these games, though, and that's always exciting. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, I don't show off the deck list. And that's, if anyone's out there and they're like, I don't want to do these locals because I don't want to show off all the deck lists. I don't want people to know what I'm on for the tournament. You don't have to worry about that because we do not publicize those deck lists. Now, no macro yet as far as we've seen in this event, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it in the tournament as we discussed earlier. And MSD sniping that heavy there. Gonna be pretty rough for Andrew because that heavy is a pretty good card, but they had 2 spell and trap card sets, so heavy might not have come up there. That's going to be pretty good. Metaing into a Dark Balter, hitting over the turtle, and then getting in for some damage. So yeah, that is a pretty powerful play here. Yep, there's the Balter. Now, it can be stopped by certain things, like Mirror Force, but yeah. Well, yeah, if you're doing Skill Drain Warriors, maybe, but even then, like, it's like, I don't necessarily know. Is that the most effective tech in Skill Drain Warriors? Because you're shutting off their flip monsters anyways with Skill Drain, right? So like, I don't know. I'm still a bit iffy on deck depth. Like, I don't necessarily think it's like the most impactful card in general. It can be decent against certain decks, but like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan. So it looks like that book is going to flip down the... Nope, they cannot negate because it's only normal spells. Book is a quick play spell, so no negation on the book. But yeah, if it was a normal spell, you could, but unfortunately, book is not normal. It's quick play. Isn't that kind of messed up that we're like, oh, Book of Moon, that's not a normal spell. It's an abnormal spell. Something like Heavy Storm, Book of Life, those are normal. MST, abnormal. Book of Moon, not in my house. Oh, that's kind of rough. I don't know why we're perpetuating this sort of like normativity around these spells and traps. calling them normal traps, normal spells, normal monsters. When was the last time you saw normal monsters do anything in this format? You know, I'd say the special monsters are more impactful. That's going to be pretty good. Return for the Warrior Lady, banishing the Pyramid Turtle there and getting in for 3,100. So fair bit of damage going in there. But, yeah, they also put themselves in a slightly vulnerable position. You need your quickies sometimes. Oh, I'm not sure you can call them quickies. That sounds kind of dirty to me. I don't know. Like, oh yeah. Look, I'm trying to promote more quick play spell acceptance, but I'm not sure calling them quickies is the way to do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is sort of the punish to going for a turn, is that you go down a lot in life points, and now you've got a really damaging turn here. Pyramid Turtle into Koki is a lot of damage. Also, you got to attack over that Dark Balder there. Going Turtle into Faith, I don't know about that. I probably would have gone Turtle into Dekoichi into Koki and then attacking the Faith that way. But maybe they've got the Kokis in hand if they're playing those. Maybe they just want to save the Turtle there as a bit of a defensive option because they are low on life. But I generally prefer going more aggressive when you're this low. But Comfy here, ripping a card out of hand, ripping away that pre-mat. Honestly, a good hit there that could allow Dean to get even more aggressive in the future. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one with the Turtle not crashing. But, you know, Andrew's the player of the deck, not me. So, and they're going to draw for turn there. Think about exactly what they want to do because they got a bit of a board to crack here. Life points are relatively even, but Dean does have 4 monsters. Now, Andrew has 4 cards as well. So, in terms of like, you know, your actual card advantage, not really much change in card advantage there. But, Realize Solar said, surprising there wasn't any short term for continuous cards. I can think of one. It's not good. It's not a good short term for them. Maybe if I was an Australian streamer, I would say it. But I am not, so I'm not going to say that. But there is potentially one short term for continuous cards. But I'm not sure they would appreciate being called that. Last will here in main 2. So we'll get out a monster from deck. That's something. But it's also good to have the Night Sealing on, I will say, because then they can't pop more stuff there, I guess. But yeah, getting in a Sangan, I think that makes sense. How many turtles are left in the deck? Maybe 1 turtle left, but they chose to go for the Sangan instead. I think that is fine. Sangan gets a search. But this will allow Dean to switch that tomato to attack, hit over the Sangan there. And no, they wouldn't be able. Well, would they have been able to do this if Koki attacked in instead of Faith, or instead of Turtle? They would be at 1,200 less. So they'd be at 1,400. So they would be able to do this. It would have just been a lot more risky for them because then Andrew could attack in for 7 and then potentially attack in for game, depending on what they have and what Dean brings out. But Exiled Force will be able to clean up that tomato there if they want to go for that. They might want to go for one of the sets instead, though. Unclear. They've got a lot of different options there. But Catburn is probably still around. I think Catburn is fine. Yeah, I think Catburn is fine. I think Catburn could probably be good. I could see that being good. It was good in Reaper. So it's probably the same sort of power level here. Graceful helps out the deck a bit, drawing into its combos. But Grateful also kind of hurts it a little bit because you potentially draw into Radiance, which you don't want to see. It's a bit tricky. I mean, you do play Graceful, right? Graceful's too powerful not to. But like in a deck like Catburn, it could actually end up being more harm than it's worth. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird situation there. But Sork on the tomato is going to be pretty good there. And then attacking into the Koi to clean up that. And now Andrew's in a pretty good spot. Of course, we do know that Dean is on return. So, you know, they could always have a big return play going on here. But, you know, I think that Andrew is, like, potentially setting up for a lethal push next turn, depending on what that set monster is. And whatever Dean draws here. Dean's just going to pass. So that's looking pretty good for Andrew. If you switch the Sork to attack in over the set. Oh, well, knock. Yeah, knock will do it. So that will be the end of the game there. And yeah, very, very good game there from both players there. So Andrew will be moving on to the finals of the locals. So Very cool stuff there. We've also got Splevin versus Dump Truck here. If I can actually find that. There we go. Oh, it's already on to game 3. Wow. That's wild. I'm not expecting this to go so quick. But we're already on game 3. Dump Truck managed to go first here, so I guess they won the first game. And they're going to shuffle someone back from Splevin there, shuffling back that Exiled Force. And putting that back. Bit of an interesting choice, leaving them with Dekoichi, Knock, Dust Shoot, Braincon. That's interesting. I mean, I guess this means that Dump Truck has a knock of their own, I'd assume. And yeah, going for the MST there, trying to hit that knock or that Dust Shoot. Unfortunately, it does miss the Dust Shoot. So nothing in standby. That's a bit weird. I don't know about that one. Okay, going for Dust Shoot now after the Sidra. Okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was pretty quick, I think. There's no reason why they wouldn't use it in standby. Yeah, it looks like there was some lag. So, yeah. Yeah, there's no reason why they wouldn't use it in standby there for sure. Dust Shoot at it again, Soul says. Yep, that's Dust Shoot. That's Chaos Return format. I mean, that's honestly most formats with Dust Shoot at 3 at this point. Like, well, not the DM format. They don't really play 3 Dust Shoot. Maybe they will in the future. Maybe trying that around. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. Weird. Yeah, DB sometimes does DB things, but I do believe that Splevin would have activated that in standby. There's not really much reason to wait. But yeah, Knock hitting a Dekoichi there. I mean, that's pretty predictable there. But yeah. Yeah, good job, Dean. You did very well here. So, yeah, I mean, you can never really bank on that because, like, people will try and play around what they think their opponent's going to hit and stuff. And one thing you can do is you can watch your opponent's replays, see what they blind snipe, in general, and then try and avoid that. But then your opponent might mix that up because they're like, well, I've been blind sniping the same thing over and over again. I'm going to snipe this new one. Or they just go random. And sometimes you can't really change the math on that much. But I think that this was fine from Splevin. I do know that also sometimes do, the first card that you set because people think that they're going to set the most important card first. Because psychologically, that makes sense. But I think it can definitely vary from person to person. But Charity's going to be really good here. Charity is going to be somewhat cracked. Pitching a Sidra and a Braincon. Oh, well, I mean, yeah. That will, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Going for Dragoon here. So, knowing that they can't kill this turn, they're setting up the Dragoon because Dragoon cannot be targeted by anything. So, it is a pretty sticky body. Not really much that Dump Truck can do there. They also could have maybe gone for Last Warrior, but I think Dragoon is a little bit safer. Yeah, Dragoon's a lot safer because if they draw into, like, Snatch Steal or something, it's better. And honestly, is Dump Truck going to be summoned into this board anytime soon? Maybe not. So they're going to set 2, pass back to Splevin here. Now, will Splevin switch these Stein to defense? They are going to switch to defense. Playing around that Mirror Force here. I think they maybe... Okay, yeah, Mirror Force was triggered. So, yeah, good to play around it. And main 2, they're going to set 1 and pass back. Now, it is important to note, Dump Truck is below the 5,000 life point threshold. That probably did impact Splevin's choice here of the Dragoon. But yeah, Sidra is going to be pretty good here, getting over that Stein. And now Splevin's in a bit of an awkward spot. But I do think this was probably the correct play overall. Econ. Okay, Econ switching that to defense most likely. Yep, that will indeed switch to defense. And that's a bit of an interesting one. I do get it, though, because there's not really much they can do with Econ to win here. And doing this allows them to potentially hit over the Dragon or potentially have a Tribute Fodder on field for a Monarch. So I think that makes sense. Yeah. If only Splevin played Interdimensional Matter Transporter. Exactly. I mean, that would have done it. That would have protected the Dragoon. And, they would have been fine here. But unfortunately, we can't all be on the goated tech, the best tech in the game. Snatch on the Cyber Dragon is going to be pretty decent here, getting aggressive for 2,100. Now, let's see. Will the mass change? If you attack him for 21, then they're down to... Oh, well, okay. Another Sidra is going to be pretty good here. Summing out that, getting him for 42. But yeah. I mean, honestly, Interdimensional Matter Transporter is really good in certain situations. Very, very cool card. And I could definitely see it, becoming more popular here. But, Yeah. Yeah, the snatch is on. Oh, another snatch coming down, though. So, oh, and a will. Ooh, that's rough. That's going to be a bit rough, probably going into a Reaper here maybe, but Reaper is a bit scary in case they top deck the last Sidra. But, it's down to one Sidra in the end, so I think Reaper is probably fine here to go into. Depends on how much you want to gamble. Are you going to take that 1 in 28 chance? You're going to go for the Sangan instead. I think that's fine. Safer play overall. But I probably would have gone Reaper. But I'm a gambler. I'm a gambling man, Malzer said, I've reached a consensus by my own research that Dusts are just better than Decree right now in this format. It will be dropping Decree from main post-haste. Yeah, I think Dust is just so good. It is just brutal. It is just brutal when you get dusted. And, as we've seen in these games, like even if it's dead later on in the game, oftentimes if you are in the late game, these games turn into grind fests and Dust Shoot's live again. So Dust Shoot is just a really good card in this format. Sort of game warping card. But going for a spy here, going into another spy as well. You don't need to worry about Mirror Force here. You do need to worry about TT, so I'm not sure if they're going to commit another card to field here. But a Mobius might be good. I don't know. Oh, Dust Tornado. Okay, that works too, yeah. But yeah, unfortunately the Jar getting met with the TT, but going for lethal, you kind of got to go for lethal sometimes. So yeah, I think that made sense overall, but unfortunately it did get punished here. That being said, I don't think Dump Truck has a lethal line right now, but Warrior Ladies can get, things pretty hot for Splevin there. But yeah, Warrior Lady coming out, tagging for 15. Now Premat is dead, BrainCon's dead. So yeah, bit of a tough thing to do here. And that Warrior Lady will be able to clean up anything that Splevin brings out. Now the Exiled Force will be able to pop the Warrior Lady, but it's not looking too good here. They're setting one, passing back. Call. Ooh, Call's going to be rough. Going for Sangan here. This will be able to get Dump Truck a search no matter what that set is. And yeah, it's going to be rough. Yeah, but Dust Tornado also very good. Dust Tornado good. I think it probably is better than Decree as well. But yeah, Heavy there is going to do it. And yeah, rough stuff. I do think that, there's good play on both sides. Again, it's sort of that results-based analysis that is not really that good. So you could argue like, oh, well, Splevin hadn't summoned out the Morphing Jar, then they would have won the game there or something. But again, like, TT is not the most likely case there. And if it was not TT, you basically win the game, or you put Dump Truck in a bit of a tough spot. So I do think that it was fine to go for that. And yeah, sometimes that's just how the games shake out there with these draws. I mean, we were playing in formats with very, very powerful draws. And I mean, that happens sometimes. So yeah, I think Splevin played that one well, but unfortunately, Yu-Gi-Oh! Depends on luck as well as skill. And, sometimes the luck doesn't go your way, But, yeah, it looks like we're in the finals now between Dump Truck and Andrew. So we'll be getting that up as soon as they host it. And I'm excited to see how that turns out. This was a pretty good locals, I think, overall. I hope that you all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, subscribe to the channel because, we'll be having more of these in the future. So that way you'll be notified when we go live. Also join the Discord server if you want to participate in any more in the future as well. It's a great place to, also just discuss the games, discuss the formats in general as well. So, it's just a fun place to be. So definitely head on over there if you are interested in any of this. And if you want to join in the monthly Chaos Turn format tournament starting tomorrow, it should be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably going to play Dark World Burn in some capacity because I think that deck's really fun. But there's a lot of fun decks that you can play and potentially, help shape the meta going forward. So that's pretty cool. So how many people do we have in the tournament chat? Or in the monthly tournament here. I'm just going to check real quick. Looks like 10 people are signed up so far, and I assume more people will sign up after that. So definitely head on over there and sign up if you are interested in playing in that event. But, we've got this game that's going to start eventually, hopefully. In the meantime, while we wait, we could jump into a custom game, or maybe I just missed it. Maybe they are playing already. Oh, they are playing. Okay, I missed it. I missed when it started. That's my bad. Yeah, I guess I looked away for a second, and they must have jumped in. Anyways, Coffee here is pretty good. Reaper, though, walling off a little bit there, so that's pretty decent for Andrew. but Comfy is going to rip away what they might have to do stuff with here. So very cool to see Zombies get second place or first place in the tournament, you know, at least second place. I'm not trying to forecast the game so far because the game is not over by any means. However, double Comfy is definitely a bad sign. So I do also think that the multiday is just a little bit more powerful than Zombies. So I would be forecasting Dump Truck winning this one, but I'd love to see Andrew win it. It would be very cool to see. But Dump Truck also is how many times have they won these locals? Dump Truck is a 12-time locals winner. So, you know, bit of a David versus Goliath story here, but you know, David did beat Goliath. So, you know, it could definitely turn out that way. So, you know, anything can happen in these games. And Dump Truck is down 2,000 life points, which it does matter. So we'll have to see exactly how this game goes from here. So it looks like Andrew has Zaborg, Creature Swap, and Book of Life. I think, honestly, just tribute off the Reaper for Zaborg, pop the Assailant, and then you could even life back the Reaper and go for that. I don't think you need to, but you could if you want to get the hand rip. I feel like they would have taken... Yeah, I feel like you just attack in here, though. Because, I mean, they could have been bluffing, like Mirror Force or something there. But I feel like you just go in for it. Yeah, and hitting over that Faith is pretty good there. And now I think Faith is a more valuable Book of Life target than DD Assailant. Because Faith, 1, does not contribute to a return play. Also doesn't contribute to, you know, you don't want the Chaos typings in Grave. So I think that makes sense. But anyways, reinforcing the army, getting fired here. I'm going to go for Exiled, going to go for Warrior Lady. A couple different options here. I think Exiled is probably the best choice here, but maybe not. Maldero says, today was just to throw everyone off my scent. My real deck is DD Survivor / the Puppet Magic of Dark Ruler deck. I mean, okay. If we're talking about cooking, you know, that's a pretty good recipe, honestly, all things considered. Because, you know, Puppet Magic of Dark Ruler does banish, bring back a powerful fiend from graveyard. You know, you got DD Survivor to come back too, so honestly, that seems pretty good. Let me just check what powerful fiends are in this format. And, there aren't, yeah, no. Unfortunately, the issue with that is that there are no powerful fiends that can really be revived that way that, like, is super good. I mean, Hot S is a very good fiend, probably the best fiend in the format, but you can't bring back a Puppet Magic, so... Yeah, it's a bit tough there. You could go for, like, Lesser Fiend, but, I mean, that's kind of awkward. It's just a worse Cyber Dragon. It is sort of like a Banisher of the Radiance or, you know, Dimensional Fidger or something like that, so that's kind of neat. But you've already got Banisher and Dimensional Fidger, so you don't need the Lesser Fiend. So, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, the ban Nightmare, yeah. But, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate there. But pitching a swap. And what else will they pitch here? I think Swap's very strong. Maybe they didn't need to pitch it, but I mean, they've got a lot of powerful cards in their hand, so makes sense here. They're thinking, and a knock. I think that makes sense. Yeah, you don't need the knock right now. I think, Stein. Wow, okay, going for it. They're going for it. And then you can, I don't know. I feel like they could have gone swap here. This is not lethal. They actually had lethal if they kept the swap, but yeah, I mean, also, yeah, I mean, it might not be lethal in the first place because Dump Truck could have like Mirror Force or something. But yeah, swap would have been good to keep here. Yeah, you can still book back. No, this doesn't even do anything. Yeah, they realized it here. But I mean, it's fine. They're still in a fine spot overall. It's just, it is scary because you've got that Cyber Sign in attack mode here. Book of Life trying to rip a card out of hand, I guess, but then you sort of allow for other things here to increase the threshold on this. So yeah, I mean, it is what you mean. I mean, not what you mean, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, this will be kind of rough for Andrew here. There are many draws that do it. Scapegoat, I mean, okay, so they wouldn't have been able to... No, they would have been able to win because they attack over the Cyber Stein with the Cyber Dragon and then attack them directly with Cyber End Dragon. So, yeah, that was maybe a little bit of a throw. But, you know, the game is not over. And if Dumptruck can't clear that Cyber End here, then, oh, okay, Heavy is kind of awkward there. Do they have a monster? They do indeed have a monster that can get in over the Reaper for exact game. So, yeah, kind of rough. Kind of rough, yeah. It is what it is, though. I mean, that happens, you know, but it definitely is very unfortunate there. Oh, no. It hurts to see things like that. But, yeah, that happens, you know. And again, I always say, playing and commentating, very different. And when you're in the moment, it can be easy to overlook things. And, you know, so, you know, don't be too harsh here. But yeah, I mean, that happens. You know, it's also the finals. So, you know, there are nerves there as well. But yeah, definitely kind of unfortunate there. Because then, like, you know, you could be like, well, okay, you know, what if Andrew had won game 1? You know, what would have happened in game 2? And it really does change a lot because going first is really impactful in this form, especially if you're playing a ton of dust shoots. And we know that Dumptruck is on the dust shoots. So, I mean, yeah, it really is tough to say from this point on who would have won. But, you know, it happens. Yeah, dust shoot is just so good. I mean, I think people didn't play it because, like, you know, they're like, oh, well, the condition is like you have to have like 4 cards in your hand, and like that oftentimes could be easy to get around, and like it'll be dead at certain points. So like, you know, I can't play dust shoot because it is very strong if it goes off, but like, you know, what are the odds of it going off? I don't want a dead card in my deck later on. But, you know, then you look at it in these formats and you're like, oh my goodness, this card is cracked. This card's so good. There's that sort of trade-off between like, well, okay, sometimes it is dead, sometimes it's a brick. But, you know, if you manage to pull it off early, it can be really, really strong. So I do think that Dust Shoot is just absolutely cracked in these formats for sure. Open it with a turtle attack here. Just passing back. Not a bad start, in my opinion. So we'll have to see what Dumptruck does here. Actually, think about it. In that last game, no, it still is lethal. Because I was thinking like, okay, well, let's say if Andrew had gotten a creature swap, well, then Dumptruck could have just changed Scapegoat to it. But then they just have a token for the Cyber End to attack into, and then they just lose the game that way. So, you know, it didn't really matter there, I think, overall. But, yeah, BrainCon for the Tribute Summon of Sidra is pretty good there. It does keep them in Stein range, but also you take away the turtle, which is probably more important at this point. But yeah, Red Eyed Soul says, maybe the mentality from when the Classic 3 entered for a round affected how players saw Dust Shoot at the time. I mean, that is somewhat fair. I will say in the DM formats that we've covered on the channel, we were not playing with Dust Shoot, and I still think it's correct not to play with Dust Shoot in those formats because you don't need 6 hand rips, and the 3 hand rips that you've got, you want to have the most powerful. And I do think that the spell hand rips are more powerful than Dust Shoots. But, you know, maybe it could be worth playing 1 or 2. Maybe it's worth experimenting with more. But either way, I think at that time, you know, if we look historically, people had a similar idea, right? Like they weren't playing Dust Shoot in those formats most of the time. They were playing the hand rips. And so, you know, when the hand rips got banned, they're just like, oh, yay, that's good. You know, the hand rips are banned. They didn't consider, you know, okay, what else in the card pool can replace this and be the new hand rips? And it's like Dust Shoot. And even if you do consider it, it's like, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a lot less powerful than those other cards. It also, you know, only does monsters, which is less impactful as well. And it also can be dead at points. So, you know, people, I think, just maybe overlooked it. I assume not everyone. I assume some people were playing it. But again, looking back on it now, once the cat's out of the bag, cat's out of the bag. And now everyone's just playing this thing everywhere. So, yeah, rough. It's a rough feature of the format. But, you know, it is what it is. And a lot of these old GX formats will be having this problem as well. Breaker coming down there. Will it pop the pre-mat or will it pop the set? I think, yeah, okay, they're popping the set. I think that's fine. Yeah, and that hit a mirror force, so very, very impactful pop there. And what will they do now is the question on everyone's minds. Malzer says, I still remember top 4 of SJC Charlotte GOAT format. J. Kim, Double Dust Shoot, and Mind Crush, my good friend Tyrone, top 4. So, yeah, okay, so there you go. People were on it. It's just, you know, not as widespread as it was now. But yeah, Trooper, so Soul says that Trooper might have been some of the first signs of historical Dust Shoot.
And I'm excited for Trooper. It should be fun. See, it says, I'm excited for Stein format. We have to wear shock collars for the locals. Yeah, that was around that time, I remember, I saw that great documentary, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where, we saw Zane facing off against the guy who in the dub has, like, the baby voice, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was a very powerful documentary, and I think it really did affect me that people used to play that way. And so, we gotta simulate that as well for the locals. Everyone getting shock collars, everyone getting heart damage, all that stuff, all that great stuff. So yeah, I mean, the next few formats should be fun. I think they will be fun. I think that all these formats are fun, like in some aspect or another, right? I think that a lot of people just oftentimes tend to focus on the negatives of formats without focusing on the positives. I think it's good just to focus on the positives. Be positive. It does change your outlook a lot, and it makes your life a little bit better, in my opinion. But it looks like Mile Zero can finally play the decks that they remember the most fondly. I'm excited to see what those are. I think there are a lot of fun decks from around this time. A lot of cool sets coming out too. So I'm excited to do my sort of card overview for that as well. And that'll probably be coming next week. So I'm not sure if it'll be coming out, early next week or later next week, because those do take a long time to make. But I do think that it probably will be coming around that time. I might record it tomorrow. Who knows? We'll have to see exactly how that happens. But what will Dump Truck do here against that set? They're just going to attack in. I think that makes sense. Could be a turtle. Okay, it's a Faith. Okay, Faith is not the best here because all you've got is knock. So now Dump Truck just knows not to set into things. So yeah, and then they're passing back to Andrew here. And yeah, it's going to be kind of rough. Yeah. Sorg is just such a powerhouse. And Andrew is below 4,500, or below 5,000, that is. So they won't be able to Stein here. You don't need to worry about that. Unless they're playing like Poison the Old Man, which most of the decks aren't playing. Some are, but, as we saw, I think either Clemens or, I think Clemens was on just pure Stein OTK. Going all in on Stein, Megamorphs, Poisons, all that stuff. It just was not quite good. So, didn't quite do it. So, yeah, I don't think many decks are on that. But Future Fusion will be interesting to build with. I'm really excited for that. Power of the Duelist is going to be really fun. That's the next set coming out after Enemy of Justice, I believe. And the interesting thing about Power of the Duelist, too, fun bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Trivia, that actually is at the point in time where they changed from 3-letter card set abbreviations to 4-card abbreviations. So, Power of the Duelist with POTD, Enemy of Justice with EOJ. So, you get to see that transition happen. That's kind of neat. I like that sort of thing. Just the little neat bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! History. I remember when it happened. I was like, whoa, 4 cards. I know that sounds like something very, dumb to get excited about as a child, but I was a very excitable kid. You could honestly, dangle anything in front of me and I'd get excited. So when I saw that happen, I was like, whoa, they're up to 4 letters, Will they go to 5 in the future? But, it was a fun time to be a kid playing Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of cool sort of casual archetypes come out as well. Like when I got my hands on some aliens, I was like, whoa, aliens? I love aliens. These are cool. I want to play with these. And I will be building an alien deck probably in whatever format comes next. Stein format, that is. But it won't be that good, but it will be funny to play around with. And aliens is another one of those decks that do get more tools over time. I think Force of the Breaker is where they really hit their stride, which honestly you could say with a lot of decks of Force of the Breaker. Force of the Breaker was really, really good in terms of just like releasing a lot of powerful tools for decks. You got the field spell searchers like Harpy Queen, Gravekeeper's Commandant. You got a lot of things like that. You also got the Volcanics, which were very fun. The Crystal Beasts, which were very fun. You got some alien support. I think Alien Brain might not come out in Force of the Breaker, but you had some powerful alien support traps and stuff there. So I think Force of the Breaker is going to be, I'm honestly looking forward to every set after Strike of Neos. I think Strike of Neos is really where the game hits its stride in terms of card sets. And I think that after that point, every set has some, fun stuff in it, and it's less like pack fillery. Of course, there is still pack filler in there. Don't worry. But oftentimes the pack filler archetypes or strategies or things like that are more playable than, other stuff. Or other stuff in the past, right? But it will still take a little bit to get there. So, we still got a couple more sets that are not quite as good for that coming up. But we'll have to see exactly what happens with those. And Yeah, Power of the Duelist format should be called POD format. No, you can't do that. I like the 4-card abbreviations. I don't want to go back to the 3-card abbreviations. Got to be POTD. POTD, Power of the Duelist. But yeah, playing into that knock a bit, but got to get out the knock somewhere. I think that is fine. This also decked ends for Dumbtrick a little bit. And if Andrew didn't go for the knock, then that probably would be at the end of the game, given some of those spells that Dumbtrick has there. Might still be the end of the game, all things considered. But, I mean, they've got a fighting chance here. 7-1, passing back. Could be a turtle. Turtle will be pretty good here. But, yeah. Boom, here comes the boom. I don't get that reference. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm too much of a boomer. Maybe I'm just uncultured. But, I don't know. Are you talking about the Kevin James movie? That was called Here Comes the Boom. But, I feel so alive for the very first time. I can't deny you feel so alivey. I know it's supposed to be alive. I just had to go for it. But yeah, return will protect them a little bit here, but unfortunately, might not be enough. Still very cool to see Andrew bringing out this Stein zombie list, sort of hybrid. But yeah, Zaborg will clean things up if that is not anything in the back row. And yeah, they're attacking in. Will it be another return? Nah, that'll be it. So very, very good games. Unfortunately, the game one turned out a bit awkward, but you can never tell what would have happened. And yeah. Oh, POD's a band from that time. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I know their full, if it's an abbreviation for something, maybe I know the full name. But I don't know the abbreviation off the top of my head. But either way, I'll get the replay up here as we sort of wrap up a little bit here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the locals as always. I thought this was fun. I did a bit earlier for people in different time zones, and we got a fair showing of people. So definitely check that out in the future. If you are interested in the locals, but you felt like, oh, there will be no time for me. I think that, we generally hold votes on this sort of stuff. So, you'll be able to vote on that. And yeah, so it should be fun. But that's going to do it for this stream. Youth of the Nation. I think I have heard Youth of the Nation. I think I have heard that. So I guess I've heard that band. I just didn't know their name, I guess. But yeah. Do all the band members' names start with P? Because then there are a bunch of P's in the pod. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for this stream. I hope you enjoyed as always. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're at 1515 right now. We'd like to reach 1600 by the end of the month. Also, join the Discord server if you want to join in future locals and future tournaments, or you just want to play games in this format or discuss these formats in general. It's a pretty great place to be. But I hope you enjoyed as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.